Okay, welcome everyone. You are now attending the June 15th zoning docket before the Baltimore City Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. My name is Katie Byrne. I'm the Executive Director, and I'll be trying to organize cases as they come through. But before I turn it over to the chair, I'd like to just explain a little bit how our virtual hearing will move forward. You've signed in, if you signed in via the internet, you're considered an attendee. So right now you don't have the ability to mute or unmute yourself or to turn your camera on. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a microphone and camera buttons and a chat feature. You should be able to see the board, myself on the screen. When your case is called, I will make you a panelist and unmute you. If your camera is functional, you can also turn your camera on and we'll be able to see you. For attendees who are calling in, so we have call-in attendees, and you wish to testify, what I will do is you will hear 2 beeps when you are unmuted. After you hear the 2 beeps, if you wish to speak on the issue that's before the board, please speak right away. If not, I will move on to the next caller. If you're unable to connect via audio, please use the chat feature. I will not be monitoring the Q&A, so please do not use that. If you are unaudible, we will ask you to try to call back and reconnect in order to hear your testimony. 2 ways you can testify in support of opposition or a member. Again, using the chat feature, you can put a message into the chat. Make sure you identify the case number or address and whether you support or oppose. There's also a hand where you can raise your hand function as well. So we'll look for people who are testifying in support or in opposition. The order of the testimony will go as follows. The applicant testifies first. Any support testimony goes second. Opposition goes third. And then the applicant will get the last word and testimony closes. If you've already testified in opposition, you hear something that you want to testify to after you have your opportunity, you will not get another opportunity. The applicant is the last one to go on the matter. Please note it's assumed, right? And that anyone who is testifying before this board, you are testifying under oath and you're required to speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth. If you have any issues with WebEx, please call our office and someone will be available to answer your call. Do not email me because I will not be able to respond to your email during the hearing. The office number is 410-396-4301. If you're having technical difficulties and can't participate for any reason, you can email your issues or any kind of motion for reconsideration based on technical difficulties to bmza@baltimorecity.gov. All right. And I will turn it over to the chair. James, you're muted.
That wouldn't be too helpful, would it? Okay. The board will vote on each case and make a decision at the end of the docket. You certainly have the option of staying on and listening to that deliberation, but you cannot participate. Otherwise, you can feel free to call the BMZA office tomorrow morning after 9 a.m. The number is 410-396-4301. You should receive your resolution in the mail within approximately 30 days. Please do not do any work until you do receive that resolution. And certainly don't do any work in Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. There are a couple of postponements on the docket today. The first case being postponed is case number 2021-063, 3101 St. Paul Street. That one will not go forward today. Second case on our original docket that is postponed, case number 2021-076, 6500 St. Helena Avenue. That matter has been moved to the July 13th docket, so that will not be heard today. Today, presently, as we start, we only have 3 board members.
I just heard from Jay. She's trying to log in.
Got it.
But I guess since I didn't have her as an original panelist, it's not working. So I'm sending her the link now.
Very well.
So that I can hopefully elevate her as a, let's see, as a person.
Thank you for that timely interruption. Okay. So forget what I was about to say about 3 board members. Looks like we'll have 4. So we'll go with that. If that changes, then I'll let you all know. So we have a number of cases. In fact, the docket is substantially all consent cases today. For those of you who don't know, consent cases are those cases for which the board has determined that we have sufficient information to approve the request. And so I will call those cases, at least hear any reports that staff and planning may have, and resolve the consent matter. So there are a number of them. We only have a few in opposition, and they will be heard at the conclusion of the consent. So with that, we want to wait a minute for Jay to get on.
All right, let me send her this link.
Morning, Ms. French.
How do you do?
Let's see.
Okay, I just sent her a link as an attendee, so let me see. Hopefully she can log in and then I can elevate her.
Well, I think we're going to be well ahead of schedule, so it's fine.
It looks like we may have opposition now in the chat to 2021-093, which is Hinson. So let's move that one from the consent docket to the start of the opposition docket.
Okay, good. (2021-093).
Yes, 606 Hinson Street. Let me see if I have Jay in here. There she is. All right, I'm going to elevate her as a panelist. Oh, all right. We no longer have opposition to Hinson. It was I misunderstood this. Let's see. Oh wait, no wait, hold on. Never mind. Yes, we still have opposition to Hinson. Sorry, just reading the chat. So Hinson will stay on the opposition docket.
All right, very well.
Okay.
Jay, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for making time for it today. No, it's short notice. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I keep saying Hinson too, and it's Hyson. So thank you all for the chats. All right.
Gotcha. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the consent docket without Hyson.
Yes.
All right. Calling the first consent case, case number 2021-068, 2838 Washington Boulevard. The appellant is Thomas McDuffie. This is a request to enclose the existing side porch. Let's see. The reference to a violation of subsection 8-401 bulk regulations in an R3 district. Let's see. This is an expansion of an existing, well,
it's basically, it was a request to enclose a side porch.
Got it.
Mr. French, did you have anything on this?
Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. No, the Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right, so let me find Mr. McDuffie. And again, it's an existing side porch and it was a request to enclose.
Got it.
So Mr. McDuffie, I do not see. Here we go. Christian Clifton. Are you here for, no, you're here for Heisen. All right, is anyone here for 2838 Washington Boulevard on the application? If so, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. All right, I'm going to go through the call-in users now to see if we have Mr. McDuffie on the call. Again, I will be going through the call-in users. If you hear two beeps and you are here for 2838 Washington Boulevard, please speak up.
Yes, ma'am. This is Thomas McDuffie here.
Oh, good. So you're Mr. McDuffie, you're for 2838 Washington Boulevard.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Very well. Mr. McDuffie, thank you for appearing today. Is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time, sir?
No, sir. We just wanted to enclose that side porch that's already existing.
All right, very well. With the board having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a great day. Next case on the consent docket, case number 2021-072, 129 through 131 South Payson Street. The appellant is Van Brooks, and this is a request to use the premises for a community center. I'll hear any reports we may have.
Mr. French, if you have anything, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. The Planning Department has reviewed this application, basically determined this is appropriate for this community and recommends approval of the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff report, again, conditional use as a community center, a variance is required for off-street parking. To the applicant, if they're not seeking off-street parking now, once they know what their capacity is, we'll have to request off-street parking later if they do not have parking on site. So that was not clear from the application. But again, the only request we have now is conditional use to use as a community center. So I'm looking for Mr. Brooks, and I see you here, sir, and I will make you a panelist. And Mr. Brooks?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Mr. Brooks, is there anything you'd like to add to your application today, sir?
No, outside of just, I hope that I'm able to move forward with bringing the community center as a resource to the community.
Okay. I don't know if you were able to hear Ms. Byrne a few minutes ago. If you're seeking a parking variance, then you'll have to come back to the board for that issue. But right now, it's simply to use it as a community center, which the board is happy to approve for you.
Thank you.
And in addition, we have a letter of support from the West Baltimore Renaissance Foundation.
Very well. Well, I'll use the standard phrase and tell you that having reviewed your appeal, the board believes it had sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you very much, sir. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Moving on to the next consent case, case number 2021-073, 3531 Claremont Street. The appellant is Evan Wivel. This is a request to construct a second floor rear addition and third floor loft and use as a single family dwelling. We'll hear any reports we may have.
Planning Department has reviewed this application and has no comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. French.
Variances requested by the applicant include a maximum lot coverage variance 100% proposed, maximum impervious surface variance 100% proposed, minimum rear yard setback variance 0 proposed. There is an existing structure that covers the entire lot, so variances are required as a result. I see Mr. Weevil, and I will make him a panelist. And you should now be unmuted.
Hello, my name is Evan Weibel. I'm the architect for the project. As described by Ms. Byrne, it's the existing lot is covered 100%. We intend to, build basically on top of those existing footprint.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weigel. And you may just have answered my next question, which is there anything else you'd like to add to your application at this time?
No, sir, not at this time.
Very well. The board having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
Calling the next case, case number 2021-074, 2426 East Baltimore Street. Virgil Bartram is the appellant. And this is a request to construct a third floor addition with rooftop decks. Now, hear any reports you may have.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
And this is, it's a conditional use request for it's technically a height variance, but falls under the conditional use category under the zoning code. Maximum height is up to 45 feet. 39 feet is proposed. So they need board approval to go to 39 feet. I see Mr. Bertram here, and I will make him a panelist. And Mr. Bertram?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time?
Let's see, I sent letters of support from the neighbors on either side of this house.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Let me just make sure we have those, sir.
Okay.
Yes, we do. I apologize for not noting that earlier. We do have 2 letters of support for this particular application.
Very well. So those are part of. Go ahead.
Right, from Patterson Park Neighborhood Association, and then I have one from Kurt and Judy Speck.
All right. So those letters are a part of the record for your application, sir. In addition to that, is there anything else? Mr. Bartram?
Is there a letter there from the neighborhood?
Yeah, from
Let's
Patterson
leave it.
Park Neighborhood Association and Kurt and Judy Speck. Those are the only 2 letters that I have in the file.
Thank you. Megan Greeley, the property owner, is also present if you have any questions for her.
No, I had no questions. Only if there's anything else you'd like to add to the record. But I think the record is fairly well supported. So if nothing else, I can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Moving on to case number 2021-075, 2501 through 2507 Utah Place. The appellant is Colbert Matz Rosenfeld, in care of Ms. Lisa Hartsmart. This is a request to construct a new 1-story auxiliary building for synagogue use. And I'll hear any reports you may have.
Planning Department has no comment on this application, although we have been working with the applicant on this. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
There are 4 variances required for this project to go forward that the board needs to decide. Interior side yard variance of 10 feet, 15 feet is required, 10 feet is proposed. Corner side yard setback, 15 feet is required, 11 feet is proposed. Rear yard setback, 25 feet is required, 1 foot is proposed. Fence height variance from 6 foot to 8 foot proposed. Would be a 2 foot variance for the fence height. And let me see, I believe Ms. Hurstberg is on the, Ms. Hertz, Mark, I will make you a panelist. Ms. Hertzmark?
Good afternoon, Ms. Hertzmark. Good to have you with us again. Is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time?
Not at this time.
Very well. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good day. All right. Next case on the consent docket is case number 2021-077, 18 East Clement Street. The appellant is Bill West, and this is a request to construct a 2-story rear addition, a 3rd floor addition, and decks at the 1st floor rear and rooftop. Hear any reports we may have.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
For this particular property requires a rear yard setback. 20 feet is required, 0 is proposed. Maximum lot coverage, 80% maximum, 92% is proposed. I will look for Mr. West. Let's see. Do not see Mr. West listed. Mr. West, if you're here under, or someone else is here for 618 East Clement, please put a note in the chat. I will start to go through the call-in users now. Let's see. Looks like Mr. Clifton. Mr. Clifton, are you here for?
Yes, I am. I am.
Okay, all right. I will make you a panelist, sir.
I'm sorry. I was downstairs. I thought I was getting moved to the end because it was opposition.
Oh, wait, sir, you are not here for Clement Street then?
No, I'm here for
Still Heisen?
606
Okay.
Heisen.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'm going to move you back to an attendee. You are being moved to the end of the docket, sir.
No, it is opposition on Heisen.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Let me go back up to the call-in users. If you hear your name, as I go through the call-in users, if you are here for 618 East Clement, please speak up.
I am here, Bill West.
Great. Thank you, Mr. West.
All right. Thanks, Mr. West. We're here on case number 2021-077, 618 East Clement Street. And I'll ask you if you have anything else you'd like to add to your application at this time, sir.
We have no opposition from the neighbors on both sides. We also are matching the neighbors, which are existing two houses to the right and another third one, which is where you cross a small street onto a corner, and the footprint matches all properties pretty much the same.
Okay, very well.
All right. And Mr. West, I'm going to leave you unmuted because it looks like you're here for 1450 Towson Street as well.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's round out. Let's finish out 077. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you for that one. And formally we'll call
Clement Street.
All right. Formally we'll call the case of 2021-078, 1450 Towson Street. Again, that would be you, Mr. West, as the appellant. And this is a request to construct two-story rear addition, third floor addition, and decks at the first floor, rear and rooftop. And I'll hear any reports we have for 1450 Towson Street.
Planning Department has no comment on this application.
Variance is requested for this particular application, include a minimum rear yard setback variance. 20 feet is required, 8 feet is proposed. Maximum lot coverage, 80%, maximum 89% proposed.
Okay, Mr. West, is there anything you'd like to add for your application for 1450 Towson Street?
We have support from neighbors in the rear end side and also the adjoining neighbor, which is to the right, which is to the left, I'm sorry, which is a Catholic church located, Our Lady of Good Counsel, and they have no opposition either. We actually share the property line with an open parking lot.
Okay, very well. Well, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, everyone. Be safe. Thank you.
All right, you too, sir. Moving on, we have our applicant who has two cases in a row, so we'll go with case number 2021-079, 2300 Whittier Avenue. Rena Johnson is the appellant. This is a request to use the premises as a multi-family dwelling consisting of 3 dwelling units. And do we have any reports for 2300 Whittier Avenue?
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property has a principal building, 3 stories, and a 2-story detached rear structure on the property. The applicant is proposing 3 dwelling units in the principal structure and has indicated that the rear building would be retained as storage space. Therefore, the department has no objection to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
First one, 2300 Whittier. The board previously approved in 2011 use as a multifamily with four dwelling units, 1 off-street parking. The property most recently was approved by DHCD for 3 dwelling units. In rental licensing, it looks like after 2011, the applicant just failed to cross the finish line and get their use and occupancy. So it has a history as an approved multifamily dwelling with the city. And I have Calvin McCargo Jr. here for the owner, and I'm elevating him to a panelist.
Great, great.
Mr. McCargo?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to add on the application for 2300 Whittier Avenue?
No, sir.
All right. The board having heard your appeal, we believe you have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much. Are you also standing in for 2301 Whittier, sir?
Yes.
All right. Now call that case number 2021-080, 2301 Whittier Avenue. Again, the applicant is Rena Johnson, who will be represented by Mr. McCargo here today. This is a request to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling consisting of 3 dwelling units. And just to touch base with staff and planning again, if there are any additional reports for this property.
Planning Department has no objection to this application.
Thanks, sir.
Again, there was a history of this being a licensed multifamily dwelling with Department of Housing and Community Development. There was an active vacant building notice from 2015. Looks like that the registration and licensing was maintained even through or at least registration had continued. I guess the one question we need to ask the applicant, is it for 3 dwelling units or 5 dwelling units? Because it looks like it's for 3. Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Very good. Mr. McCargo, is there anything you'd like to add to your application for 2301 Whittier Avenue?
No.
Very well. The board having heard your appeal, we believe you have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. Moving on, case number 2021-082, 731 South Curly Street. The appellant is Joseph Montagne, and this is a request to construct a 2-story rear addition and a carport. We'll hear anything we have from staff and planning.
Planning Department has no comment on this application.
Okay, this particular application, the requests are 1 minimum rear yard setback for 20 feet is required, 8.5 feet proposed, maximum lot coverage, 80% maximum, 87% proposed. We have a letter of support from the Canton Community Association, and I understand Nate Prettle, I believe, is here for the applicant. Mr. Prettle, let's see. You should be unmuted.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We sure can, Mr. Prettle. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so with regard to 731 South Curly Street, Mr. Prettle, is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time?
Not at this time. Ms. Byrne mentioned the letter of support from the Canton Community Association. We've been working both with the CCA as well as adjacent neighbors, and that's all I have to add.
Very well. The board having heard your appeal, we believe you have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All
right. Case number 2021-083, 2001 East 31st Street. The appellant is Shawanda Brooks. And this is a request to install a fence 6 feet in height, portion of which will be located along Jennifer Avenue. Now, hear any reports we may have for this property.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Sir?
All right, 2 variances are required from the board in order for this permit to go forward. It would be a corner yard setback variance. It looks like 20 feet potentially is proposed, but it was unclear from the site plan, so we need to get clarity from the applicant exactly what the corner yard setback is, and as well as a maximum height fence, corner yard, side yard, 3.5 feet are permitted. 6 feet is proposed, so it will be a 2.5-foot variance that's requested. The applicant is Shawanda Brooks. I will see if Ms. Brooks, if you could raise your hand if you're here. If not, I will go through the call-in users. Great, I don't see additional hand raised, nothing in the chat, and we'll work our way through the call-in users. So if you are here for 2001 East 31st Street, please speak after you hear 2 beeps.
Good afternoon. This is Shawanda Brooks.
Great.
Good afternoon, ma'am. So we're here for 2001 East 31st Street. And Ms. Byrne, could you repeat for Ms. Brooks what it is information we need here?
Sure. Ms. Brooks, from your site plan, it was not clear exactly how far back from the side yard or from the corner side yard you were going to install your fence. So is it going right to the lot line?
Yeah.
All right. So you need the maximum setback.
Well, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay. I know it's hard because like we can't necessarily see each other. But when I looked at your site plan, there wasn't a distance between the like side yard and where the fence was going to be installed. So it wasn't clear where on the side yard it was going to go, if it was going to go all the way to the lot line or if it was going to go closer to your house.
It's going to the line.
Okay, so to the lot line. So you need the full variance to the side yard corner.
That would be correct.
All right. All right, that's noted for the record. Ms. Brooks, is there anything else you'd like to add to your application today?
No, sir.
Very well. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. All right. Case number 2021-084, 4005 Hamilton Avenue. The appellant is Jessica Cabell. This is a request to use the portion of the premises as a daycare center. Now, here any reports we have from planning and staff.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this is a mid-block property on the south side of Hamilton Avenue. It is also a very deep lot. It's got 78 feet of frontage on Hamilton Avenue and over 500 feet of depth. So it's quite an appropriate location for the proposed use. However, the one issue is a safe drop-off and pickup area, and the department is concerned that the applicant maintain a safe drop-off and pickup area on the property itself, because Hamilton Avenue does have a lot of traffic, some of which is at high speed. Therefore, the department recommends that approval of this application be subject to the condition that a safe drop-off and pickup area for children is established and maintained on this property, and that any on-site parking area is properly screened from adjacent residences. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
As Mr. French stated, it's a conditional use application for a daycare center in an R3 district. The board has the ability to approve a conditional use, but also may impose on the establishment location any kind of operation or restrictions or conditions or limitations it feels necessary for the protection of public interest and consideration of the standards. So Ms. Cabell is here. I will make her a panelist. Ms. Cabell?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Cabell. I'm going to ask you to speak up. Were you present and did you hear the comments of Mr. French from the planning department regarding the safe drop-off and pickup area?
Yes, I spoke to Mr. French and I made it very clear that our driveway is...
Ma'am, I need you to speak up. All right, I'm going to ask you to say that again. If either you could move closer or further away from the phone. I'm not sure which it is, but we could not hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Much better, much better.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry, I had my Bluetooth in.
Okay.
Yes, as I spoke to Mr. French, I said that we do have a huge private driveway, so it's easy for people to drive in and turn around and safely exit the driveway.
I told him we would call.
I'm sorry,
certain
sir.
areas,
Hold
but
on. Who's speaking?
All right, it looks like Christian is he must have accidentally got unmuted. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Cabell. So you were indicating that there is a turnaround area on the premises for
That's
drop
correct.
off and
It's
pick up.
paved and it is gravel and it's enough space to turn around. And taking into consideration that the parents would be coming at different times, it wouldn't be an excessive amount of traffic, going in and out.
Okay. Let me also ask you, while we have you, what is the maximum number of children which your center is designed to accommodate?
I'm in the process of dealing with childcare, and unfortunately, they would say that based off of the square footage and licensing. So this is like the pre-course before I'm able to obtain that information. But my thoughts was between 15 to 20 school age kids.
Okay. All right. Very well. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your application at this time, ma'am?
That was just that this would be very beneficial to the community. There's always such a high need for childcare and a safe environment, and we definitely have the ability and the capacity to help out the community significantly.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Moving on to case number 2021-088, 139 South Clinton Street. The appellant is Adam Carvalho, and this is also a request to use the premises as a daycare center. Here, any staff and planning reports we may have.
Thank you. Planning Department noted that this application, although it is for a specific property, is actually on behalf of the existing Highlandtown preschool operating next door to this building, and that this basically is an expansion of an existing program there. As with Hamilton Avenue, there is a question about safe drop-off and pickup of anybody arriving by motor vehicle. That particular location, there is angled parking on this side of the street. The building basically covers enough of the lot that there is no possibility of providing any on-street parking or, off-street parking, or any place to turn around a motor vehicle. However, the applicant has indicated that most of the patrons are parents who bring their children by foot to this particular location, and they would expect that to continue. The department is recommending approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
Again, as was previously stated, daycare center conditional use approval by the board. We have 6 letters of support for this particular application, 1 from the Highlandtown Community Association, 1 from Councilman Cohen, 1 from Corey Brewer, a neighbor, Veronica Rodriguez, a neighbor, Felicia Harsh, a neighbor, and the Southwest Community Development Corporation, or I'm sorry, Southeast CDC. Let's see, and it looks like Mr. Parker is here, and we'll start with Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker? Mr. Parker? Now, let's see. Mr. Parker, can you hear us? I don't know why you're muted.
You may be muted.
I'm showing you as unmuted. Okay.
That happens sometimes in Cisco WebEx. It was trying to pull from the wrong camera. I apologize for the delay.
Very well. Good afternoon, sir. So you're here for 139 South Clinton Street. And I'll ask, is there anything you'd like to add to the application at this time?
No, I appreciate the conversation I had with Mr. French and his sharing of those details. As you mentioned, this is an expansion of an existing program that's been operating since 2018. And not only do we expect the vast majority of our students to walk here or ride their bikes or scooters, but it's actually built into our enrollment policies that we give priority to students who live in the surrounding zip codes to help a community preschool function here.
Very well. Well, sir, pleased to say that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Good luck to you. Case number 2021-092, 6010 6010 Baywood Avenue. The appellant is Samuel Pleader, and this is a request for a construction of a one-story rear addition with basement. Here, any reports we may have.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
For this particular application, only one variance is required, a rear yard setback variance. 30 feet is required, 26 is proposed, so it's a 4-foot variance. We have letters of support from 9 neighboring property owners. I do not see Mr. Pleader here. So if Mr. Pleader, if you are here, could you please either raise your hand or put in the chat? If not, I will begin going through the call-in users or anybody else that's here for 6010 Baywood. Okay. Are you here for 6010 Baywood? All right, that looks like that is our only call-in user right now. I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised. Do you want to call this one at the end?
Okay, fine. We'll go back. We'll circle back and
Right.
bring 092.
Okay, and I'll see if Roxana can get him on the phone. Maybe something happened.
Call case number 2021-103, 3200 St. Paul Street. Tiffany Anonye. This is, let's see, request to add live entertainment to existing restaurant at a portion known as 3224 St. Paul Street. I'll hear any reports we may have.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is located in the North Charles Village Planned Unit Development. The Planned Unit Development Ordinance designates 2 specific portions of the PUD, areas D and G, as the only parts where live entertainment, accessory to restaurants and bookstores was and is allowed as a conditional use. This particular property is located in the area known as D, and therefore this is allowed by the Planned Unit Development Ordinance. The department is recommending approval of this application subject to these conditions. A copy of the use and occupancy permit of the premises has to be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. A copy of the written approval by the board of the live entertainment provided on the premises, including details of any restrictions or limitations on live entertainment provided, must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. And a copy of all other permits and licenses required pursuant to the written approval of the board must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. Thank you.
All right, so I have Tiffany Anonye on here twice, but before we move forward, again, this is a conditional use entertainment live. Again, the board has the ability to place certain conditions or requirements on it, the granting of a conditional use. There are 4 letters of support, one from Beatty Development Company, one from Kai Ayatoro, the neighbor, the Baltimore Office of Promotion and the Arts, as well as the Charles Village Civic Association. Miss Anaya, I'm going to elevate one of your entries to a panelist. We'll see if that works. Can you hear us?
Yes, hi. Thank you.
Excellent.
I don't have anything at this time to add additional. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Neither you nor anyone else could hear me because I was muted. All right. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, we had a message in the chat from Brenda Lerner, who is here for the one we just postponed to the end, 6010 Baywood 2021-92. So we can jump back to that one.
Okay, case number 2021-092, 6010 Baywood Avenue. And we have someone here.
Right. Miss Lerner?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lerner. We're here for 6010 Baywood Avenue. And I want to ask you, is there anything you'd like to add to the application at this time?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, thank you. The board having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now we're off to the regular docket, correct?
Right.
All right. And
Yes.
we'll start with Heisen. Since we seem to may still have Mr. Clifton on the line. We call the case 2021-093, 606 Heisen Street. The appellant is Christian Clifton. And this is related to the construction of a two-story addition, rooftop deck, and rooftop stairway enclosure. And I'll hear any reports we may have.
Planning Department has no comment on this application.
The application is to construct a two-story addition rooftop deck, rooftop stairway enclosure. Zone is R8. The variances requested we have two variances. A minimum rear yard setback, 20 feet is required, 0 feet are proposed. Maximum lot coverage, 80% maximum, 100% proposed. So I will now make Mr. Clifton a panelist. Mr. Clifton.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Tell us about your project, if you would.
I'm pretty consistent with the rest of the block. The whole lot's only 47.6. So if we didn't take full lot coverage, I mean, it's pretty hard to get anything more than one bedroom. So trying to get two decent sized bedrooms in there and a rooftop. We actually scaled it down. I originally was thinking of a 3-story, but it's kind of overwhelming for the block. So that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Let's see, the opposition, hold on one second. Let me pull her up. So Mr. Clifton, I'm going to mute you right now. We're going to bring the opposition on. Hold on.
Yep.
Miss Grizel, Claire. Right. Miss Grizel?
Israel, can you hear me?
We can, ma'am. I will ask you to speak up if you could.
Okay, I will.
Very well. That's good. And tell us, go ahead and let us know your issues on license.
All right, I'm the owner of 604 Heisen.
Yes, ma'am.
And the new owner of 606 Heisen had made no contact with me at all to discuss this project. So doesn't know whether I had an opinion, positive or negative. This is an old 1900 built 2-story unit in an alley with no street parking and backing up to a 4-foot alley that also has, that's not my dog. Somebody's dog was barking. Okay. So it's a block of 2-story townhomes backing up to each other. We are in Alley Street and we have a walking alley behind us. There's no parking in this dense area of 61 homes in a 1-block area. And the 3 homes that are attached, 604, 606, and 608 Heisen Street, none of them have abused the setback at 80%. And actually, they just basically have 2 rooms on each floor. And so a lot of nice airspace. We have a small deck that comes out of ours, and so does 608. By building a large 2-story addition that covers the full lot, it would box in the 608 property and half box in mine, leaving only the alley to get any lighter air in. A previous owner to this property tried to do a push through a similar proposal and ended up with a no permit foundation that had to be abandoned. So the foundation that was illegally put in is still sitting there in the lot. I have a picture here. I'm not sure if you can see pictures
All right,
from here.
what I'll do is I'll make you a panelist, ma'am, and let's see if you can pull the picture up. All right, so Miss Grizel,
Israel.
I'm sorry, Gizriel.
Okay.
Can you turn your camera on?
Let me see. How do I do that? Is it on? Oh, start video here.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see that photo? This is what the property currently looks like. And I'd like to show you also, this is the front street. So it's just a bunch of 2-story townhomes on an alley street with no parking. And this is the unit we're talking about, and the house next to it has a little bit of decking on it, but all open space. The other side is my property with a small deck, but open space. So the 3 homes in a row are all open space. And as you can see, this shows how many properties, these individual plats show how many properties are on this small 1-block area. I'm trying to find my note that had my notes on it. Okay. Let me go add a few more comments if I could, please. So anyway, when the last owner abandoned this illegal foundation and the property had to be repossessed, he did nothing to secure the building. And I had to work with my city councilman to get them to secure the building, to put on a roof because the property was collapsing, and we were concerned about flooding damage and destruction to the other 2 properties on either side. So, and also, of course, mold and water damage. But I was concerned that, they create this big property, they think they're going to do it, and they try to do it with cheap labor that was illegal, and then they abandon the property. And I'm concerned that I'm the one that ended up having to make the effort to get it cleaned up with the cooperation of my city councilman, thank God. And one other thing I would like to request is that they do not expose the brick walls. This is a 120-year-old house built with crumbling brick. There's really not cement foundations. It's more like a little bit of foundation built into dirt. So I'm going to add to my conversation my husband, who's an architect, and I could have him call in separately, but we've both registered through yesterday to be in the meeting. And since he's here, can I let him speak next, or does he need to call in?
No, obviously he can certainly speak. Just state the name, sir, and we'll hear from you.
Afternoon. My name is Robert R. Gizriel. I'm a licensed architect. I've been working in renovation in the Federal Hill area since I bought a 12-foot wide house on Montgomery Street in 1981. The issue is renovation is different from new construction. You have to really measure the property, know what your next door neighbor is, know what your house is. The proposed set of plans have a lot of mistakes. In other words, the ceiling height, for example, of the basement is under 7 feet. They think it's 8. The ceiling height of the second floor, the rear of our property, is 7 feet. So they think they're going to tack on a roof to the existing property, have the same slope. If you slope a 1/4 inch per foot, the ceiling height in that addition will be 6 feet 7 inches. By building code, you have to have a ceiling height of 7 feet 6. So even any kind of addition, you're going to have an interesting dilemma to get a 7 foot 6 ceiling. Also, the proposed scope of work, the documents really don't have anything relating to what's next door. So they think they're going to put in a foundation right next to our deck and the next door neighbor's decks that could undermine the footing. But the most important thing that really jumps out at you is I did a site plan of the last property, and you could see in yellow is their property. And the party line next to us is only 45 feet, minus the 27-foot existing house, that leaves you an 18-foot yard. But what they're trying to do is their proposal is to put a 20-foot rear yard, a rear addition, which means the addition would go into the alley. So you have to reject this proposal mainly because you can't build in the alley. You have to, I mean, it's more than 100% lot coverage. So we're asking for you to stick to the the zoning code that says 80% lot coverage, which would mean a 9-foot addition. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else, ma'am?
No, unless you all have questions about what we've discussed.
I do not, but we will go to anything from the board for the Gizraels.
No.
All right. All
I
right.
don't have a question right now, but I might want you to repeat some of your numbers, Mr. Gizriel, later, but not right, not yet.
Okay. So we'll send it back to Mr. Clifton. Are you there, sir?
I'm here.
Okay. Can you tell us, was there any attempt to reach out to the immediate neighbors with regard to this project?
No, I did talk to Ben, which I guess is 608. He said that he had concerns as well as 604. I'm sorry, I did assume he would just relay those. I sent him emails of the drawings, any questions he had, any concerns. He did state that 604 had concerns as well. He said he had no opposition once I sent everything. He actually brought up the same thing with the lot, and I told him, obviously, we won't go into the alleyway. It's only a 3-foot alley, so it would be obvious if we impeded on the alley any at all. As far as what was done prior to my ownership, I reached out as many times as I could to the bank. It took me over a year to get, since I made the offer to close on this. It was a company out of New York. By that time, the city did do something with the roof. I told them that both neighboring properties were getting water damage because that's what I spoke to a building inspector I'm familiar with. We do a lot in the area, Dane Stowers, and he stated that the guy kind of abandoned the project, that they were getting water in the neighboring houses. So I tried everything I could do to expedite it. I can't work on something I don't possess yet, so the city actually went down there and improved on it. But as I said earlier, I mean, the current size of the house, even 80% lot coverage, it's nearly impossible. I mean, I guess there are a couple that has no kids. I mean, for what they have is great. I'm not doing it to live in. I will resell it. But as far as trying to get something that's even, somewhat enticing to sell, it's going to be nearly impossible without taking that 47 feet and getting 2 decent size rooms. So I don't know if there's any other concerns, but and as far as the exposed brick, I'm willing to show them the stair wall is actually already exposed. So there's nothing I can do to something that's already done. If they're worried about grinding and pointing, I mean, I'm willing to work with them any way I can on that. But the biggest thing is the obstacle of not taking full lot coverage.
I'm thinking, of course, that maybe some of these issues may have had an opportunity to be worked out if they had been raised between the parties before getting to this point.
Yeah, this is my first one I've done where I've had to go for a variance. Usually we have enough lot where it's not an issue. 47 feet is the full lot on this, so I wasn't aware that I should reach out to the neighbors. I'm sorry, it's my first one doing the whole lot coverage. So,
well, let me suggest to you: would you like the opportunity to do that? You certainly can, and we can move this off the docket and bring it back once you have an opportunity to speak with the owners to perhaps work out the differences.
it's just, I mean, I've possessed this thing for, I had to wait on an architect. I had to wait on it's been like 2 years in the making. I'm trying to get, I mean, if I got to come back for a hearing, it takes another 2 months and then a month to get the permits. It's going to push me into another year. So.
Okay, it's your choice. I'm not saying you have to do it. But obviously the opposition is what we take into account when we're
absolutely
rendering determination on.
And it's those 3 houses. If you look at the Earth, like a Google Earth, it's only those 3 houses that haven't pushed the full property line. I could pull it up and show you, but it's that small area. The rest of the house, I mean, the one on the corner is a triangle, like a skewed lot. It takes full lot coverage. It's a 3-story. The end unit's a 3-story. Almost everyone in between that's full lot coverage. So it's not like I'm doing something out of the ordinary. It's just those 3 houses that don't take full lot coverage.
Mr. Clifton?
Yes.
Mr. Clifton, I also would suggest that you go back to the neighbors and then come to us.
So what would that involve? In scheduling another hearing?
Well, a postponement, it would be your request. It would be a postponement, and we would put it back. We could probably put it back on the next docket, unless the parties were to tell us that there's some other issues. But
all right,
that's one of the things we do take into account, because we certainly consider, the impact to the neighbors, and it's legitimate. They're legitimate concerns that have been raised, and we want to be sure that the parties have an opportunity to resolve all of those before somebody gets a detrimental ruling against it. So, it's as I said, it's a suggestion, and they certainly, have identified, the issues of which they have concerns. So,
yeah, I'm willing to do that. When would be the next hearing?
June 29th.
All right. And should I try to reach out to them, or can they give me a contact?
All right. So Miss Grizel's raising her hand, so I'm going to unmute Miss Grizel, and Mr. Clifton, I'm going to leave you unmuted too. But if you guys would just not talk over each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Miss Grizel.
I was just going to say,
sorry.
I am happy to work with the owner. We really want something to be improved next door, so I'm sure that we can come up with an agreement. And we're happy to postpone it till June 29th and have discussions between now and then. And the only comment I would make, if he could consider, is that his proposed drawings have 3 bedrooms, not 2. And maybe if he could move it back to 2 bedrooms, we could come up with an agreement that would only infringe on 80% of the lot coverage instead of 100.
Well, that 3rd bedroom's in the basement, so that it's not like I wouldn't be impacted with shortening the distance up.
Well, all right. Well, we'll leave it to these folks to, Ms. Byrne, you can sort of coordinate getting them together.
I will. So I'll send, I believe I have email addresses for actually, if you could both email BMZA at baltimorecity.gov, and that way I'll connect you 2 by email, and then you guys can go from there.
All right.
There's someone named Ben Harris in the chat who might need to be a part of this as well.
Yeah, he's the one that's on the other side of the property. He's the 608.
So maybe he should email.
Yeah, he should be included in those discussions, Mr. Clifton.
All
right.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Harris. Thank you for catching that, Sabrina. I had the attendees over the chat and didn't see that. So, Mr. Harris, if you could also email BMZA at baltimorecity.gov, and we'll connect all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, folks. And that'll conclude 2021-093, which officially is now postponed.
Signing off, right?
Let's move on to case number 2021-120, 340 South Collington Avenue. The appellant is Eden No.
Yes.
And this involves construction of a 2-story rear addition and 3rd floor addition. And this is one we have opposition on, so I'll hear any reports we may have from staff and planning.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And this one, oh, I'm sorry, we went to 3040 South Collington, correct?
340 South Collington?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 340 South Collington.
Right.
Okay, so for this particular one, the project is to construct a 2-story rear addition, 3rd addition. Rear yard setback variance, 20 feet is required, 0 is proposed, so it's a full rear yard variance. Maximum lot coverage, 80% maximum, 93% is proposed, so it's a 13% variance coverage. The applicant has submitted drawings. We do not have specific opposition on this one, but essentially all 3 drawings for the 3 properties she has submitted are identical. Different locations, but almost identical drawings. So I'll elevate Miss No as a panelist. Ms. No, you are unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
So, Ms. No, we're here for initially 340 South Collington Avenue. I know that we have you have other properties on today's docket. We'll get to those. And we've noted that although there seem to be similar construction that you want to do with each of those properties, the drawings are the same for all of them. Is there a reason for that?
The drawings are not exactly the same. The dimensions are all different for all three. My architect, Mr. Okoye, is also here at this meeting if you have any questions about the drawing. But this lot is different than the other two because this one is very narrow. It is 12.6 feet in width. It also is different because it's kind of like an enclosed lot where I have neighbors to my left, right, and also back. I have gotten letters of support from most of my neighbors on my left, which is 2124 Bank Street, Brad Alterwitz, 2122 Bank Street, Mr. David Ladonsky. I've also gotten
So
verbal.
just so we're clear, we're on Collington.
340 South Collington. That's the only one we're on right now. I raised the issue of the drawings, but you're referring Collington?
Yes.
Okay.
Those the ones that I mentioned, 2122, 2124, they are basically to the left. They share my wall at 340 South Collington. It's not related to the 1826 Bank Street.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm requesting 93% lot coverage, which creates a 4-foot setback because this current home is approximately 46 feet in length currently, but it's still a very shallow depth, and it doesn't have like a big enough kitchen for a family, which is why I would like to extend it to 58 feet. It will give enough room to add a bathroom on the first floor, as well as have a larger kitchen, which can accommodate a family. I don't know if you guys have gotten the letters of support, but like I said, I have talked to my neighbors and they have signed letters of support on behalf of this project. Part of the wall on my left side, there was an addition that was created, I don't know exactly, maybe like 30 to 50 years ago, and that wall is kind of coming apart and it's leaning, which is why I would like to reconstruct that wall and just make it more supported by adding more joists. And since I have also spoken to my neighbor in my back, none of them are opposed to me having a 93% lot coverage. So I would like to go forward with the project, especially like I said, because this home is only a 12.6 width. And it doesn't affect my neighbors in a negative way. I think it would only bring value to the neighborhood, and the home needs to be rehabbed.
Just one question really quickly, Ms. No. Emma Petrovich.
Yes.
All right. She just sent a message that she says she has a presentation for visual.
She does. Yes.
All right.
If she can be actually the panelist and I could just join as audio.
The system doesn't seem to want to let me unmute and make her a panelist. So that tells me it's probably how she's connected. But Ms. Petrovich, I just unmuted you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, but it's not letting me make you a panelist, which means it's somehow how you've joined.
Okay.
So you won't be able to share anything with us.
Okay. Let me see if I can join on a separate device and be able to share that way.
Okay.
So, let's see. If you have any questions for the drawing in particular, my architect is also available for any questions, but I'm sure he would agree with me that all three of the homes, of course, they're all rectangular, but other than that, they have all different dimensions and lot sizes.
Okay,
So they're similar but different.
and your architect's name again is?
His name is Ike, Ike, and then his last name is Okoye.
All right, I don't see him here listed.
Let me ask him really quick. Hold on one second.
All right, let's try. Okay, so now I have Miss Petrovich. I'm going to make you a panelist now. And all right, you should be able to, if you could turn, I think you should be able to turn your camera on, Miss Petrovich.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Let me.
Now,
Okay.
the documents that you want to share, you can share screen if I pass you the access.
Okay. Yes. Let me just pull it up. First.
Okay.
1 minute. Sorry.
So my architect says that he's on the line and that he can hear you guys, but somehow with the connection that you guys are not able to hear him. Do you know why that is?
Well, I can't hear him because I haven't elevated it or unmuted him, but I don't see him. And so he either needs to raise his hand or put in the chat who he is so that I can unmute him.
Okay.
So I have right here. I will turn on. So I just turn on my camera.
Right, hold on 1 second. No, what I'm going to do is I just sent you to allow you to be the presenter.
Okay.
So now you have the ability to share your screen.
Okay, let me figure this out really quick. Is there something that I press to be able to share my screen?
You should look at you should be able to see at the bottom, there's something that says share content, like a little arrow.
Okay, yes, I see it. And I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Right, 1 minute. So this is the presentation that I have. Let me. 1 minute. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So so the home will be 12.6 feet by 62 feet. We're proposing for it to be a 3-story house. It is currently a 3-story house, but the third level is not fully extended. And then there would be a 4-foot setback, and the proposed height is 34 feet, which is 1 foot below the maximum, I believe. So this is some images of the current front of the house. So as you can see, the 2 images to the left, and then the 1 image on the right is our neighboring house. Then here you can see this first image on the left is the existing first floor. And then to the right is the existing second floor and existing third floor. So yes, if everyone would like to take a look at that. And then I will move over to this is the proposed drawings. So it would be the proposed first floor, the proposed second floor, and then the proposed third floor. And I believe, okay, and then this is the front elevation and rear elevation. It's on the image to the left. So if you look on the image to the right in the left image, that's the front elevation, and then the image in the left image is the rear elevation, sorry. And then to the right is the site plan. So we would extend the lot, I forget the exact percentage, but there would be a 93%, and there would be a 4-foot setback. Renovating this house and adding the addition, it is, well, at the very least, renovating the house is very important because currently one of our neighbors is experiencing like some problems, and he feels that renovating the house would help. And then, as you can see here, I'm the beneficiary of the trust that this house, I believe, is in. And then Eden No, she is the owner, and then Ike is the architect. So does anyone have any questions? Or would you guys like to see any other drawings? Previously.
Is this part of your package that has been sent to BMZA?
Yes. Yes.
Any questions from the board at this time?
Mr. Chair, what did planning have to say about this? And do we have the letters of support? I don't have them.
I don't know.
Planning had no comment on this application.
Okay, thank you.
We did not receive any letters in support to the board.
I had emailed the secretary, and I've had at least 5 people mail in letters of support. And I've
Okay,
had
mail in directly to the BMZA. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
So well, just so everyone on this call is aware that we are not getting mail timely at all in the city. So email
I
is.
don't think anybody in the city is.
No one is getting mail timely. Email to bmza@baltimorecity.gov is where all letters of support should be going. And we did not receive any until this date. So happy to look at that again. But like I said, we've received no letters of support for this property.
So I actually physically dropped in to the mailbox at the BMZA 2 letters of support, which are the 2 neighbors to my left. And I've had 3 people email to the bmza.gov email address. So I'm not sure why those were not received.
You say drop in. What do you mean by that? You took them physically to the office?
Yes.
Well, the office was closed.
You can't get in.
No, we were able to get in. They had a Dropbox.
No, we don't have a Dropbox.
Where did you go, ma'am? Just this may be helpful
to the zoning office on the first floor. The zoning office on the first floor has a Dropbox. BMZA is on the 9th floor. No one's allowed in the building.
Okay, yeah, I think I dropped it off into the zoning, but I actually have the emails as well because the people who wrote the letters of support, they actually also sent me a copy. So I sent those copies to Ms. Cifuentes, but I could also send that to whoever needs a copy.
You sent them to whom?
Miss Roxana Cifuentes.
All right.
Miss Cifuentes.
Okay, yep, she works here, and we will look to see if they're in her email. And I'm looking at the BMZA email right now.
And I have the copies of the letters, or actually the emails.
If you want to forward those to us via email, that would be great.
Yeah, that's probably the only way they're going to be made a part of the official record.
I will do that. What email should I send this to? And I could do that right away.
You can send them to me. It's Kathleen, Kathleen,
Okay.
.Byrne, BYRNE,
Okay.
at baltimorecity.gov.
All right. I will do that shortly.
Yeah, I'm looking in the inbox and I don't see it, but we'll worry about that later if you just send us
Okay.
stuff.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to present, Ms. No, for your team before we hear from the opposition?
Unfortunately, I don't know how to get my architect on this. He doesn't know like how to, like, he can hear you guys, but he doesn't know how to join in. So I will have to try to figure that out.
Okay.
Miss No, has he tried calling in?
He actually has how he could hear in.
I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? For the
Well,
sake of,
For this one, actually, we do not have any opposition. We have
Oh, okay.
opposition from the other two.
gotcha. All right, so there's nothing else to be heard.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Well, I got to say, if there's something you'd like us to be made aware of through your architect, that would be helpful for you to have him speak to us, or submit whatever it is you need to submit that hasn't already been submitted. Because I don't know whether I have any questions for him or not, frankly.
If you have any questions for him, I'm going to try to call him to actually help him log back on. But I think he was just going to speak briefly that me building this isn't going to affect any of the neighbors in a negative way or have a negative impact, and that they have plenty of access to light and air.
Okay. All right. That's helpful information. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if there are no questions from the board at this point, that will conclude case number 2021-120. And then we'll address these other properties for which Ms. No is also the appellant.
Okay.
All right.
And I just, side note, Ms. No, I did just receive your email.
Okay, and then I'm going to find the other ones for you.
Okay.
Great.
I don't know why it didn't like go to you in the first place. It's just odd.
All right. Well, let's call case number 2021-045, 205 South Chapel Street. Again, the appellant is Eden No, and this is a request to construct a 2-story rear addition and 3rd floor addition. And I'll hear any reports we may have for this property.
The planning department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Sir?
Variance is again to request a 100% lot coverage, minimum rear yard setback, 20 feet is required, 0 feet are proposed, so the maximum rear yard setback. We have letters in opposition from Upper Fells Improvement Association stating it cannot support this appeal because Ms. No did not provide us with the material or land use guidelines required for an applicant to receive support. Objection from Beth Russo, a neighbor, Mike Schultelis, a neighbor, Robert Tarr, business owner, Shirley Suragos, a neighbor, Mark Hoffman, a neighbor, Grant Wheeler, has filed a opposition, has multiple exhibits. In addition, we have a petition from the neighbors living on South Chapel Street who oppose this appeal. Essentially, the petition says the project would cover 50 feet of a 52-foot lot, depth lot, too big for us. Our street and our homes are all 2-level, and this proposal is out of scale with our homes. This section of South Chapel Street is very narrow at 12 feet. The drawing shows the house that would tower over ours. The people that own this property have not been good neighbors. They have not been responsive to problems with other rental houses on the street. They have had a lot of violations, including sewage running into neighboring homes for multiple weeks before action was taken. They may have additional violations for trash. The height of the project would greatly reduce the sunlight on the street and cast a shadow on the part of the street that slopes down. This will cause a problem with ice and snow melt, creating hazard during the winter. We think that a nice home could be made on this lot consistent with ours. That does not need to be a big rental house in this location. The house is already 14 feet 6 inches wide, which is slightly wider than average on the lot, and is longer than the others. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 different people who have signed on to this, all of them on South Chapel Street, one on Pratt Street. And let's see, with that, I guess we can turn it back over to Ms. No and Ms. Petrovich.
Okay,
Yes.
let's hear from you, Ms. Snow, with regard to 205 South Chapel.
So this home is over 120 years old, and I honestly don't know when the last time it was remodeled. The home is very old, awkward, outdated, and in badly need of rehab. This home is also on a corner, since there is an alley separating this home from the apartment on Pratt Street. 205 South Chapel lot is 17.6 by 52. The current home is 15.6 feet by 38. I would like to request 100% lot coverage and be able to extend to 52 feet, because if I only did 80% of this lot, it would only be 41.6 feet, which is only about 3 feet longer than the current existing home. This home does not have a basement, which makes it somewhat unique in Baltimore, and it's necessary to go to the 52 feet length in order to have the water heater, HVAC, and laundry, and possibly a bathroom, as well as a full kitchen on the first floor. Currently, the water heater and HVAC is in the living room, and the bathroom as well as the kitchen is so small and that only one person can go in at a time. There are many issues with this home. First being that the kitchen is very low, so that no one over about 5 feet 5 can enter. It's very cramped and there's no space to move. It's more of a kitchenette than a kitchen fit for a family. Modern kitchens have islands, cabinet space, dishwashers, and I would like to add all those to this home. I would also like to have a laundry room. This house currently has no ability to do laundry. And I would also like to have a decent sized bathroom instead of something that's very cramped and small. The home behind me is 200 South Washington Street, and I have emailed the plans to them. They have renters, and so I've only been able to speak with the owners via phone and email. But the space right behind me is actually a parking pad, so I don't believe that there will be any negative effects to light and air, since it is only a parking pad in the back. Now, the space to the right of me, which is 207 South Chapel, they actually got 100% lot coverage back in 2017, right after the zoning rules were modified. To the left of me is the apartments on Pratt Street. That actually covers their entire lot and consists of about a 4 or 5 story building, and it is ginormous. So I cannot believe that, again, that my project would have any impact on theirs, besides the fact that there is an alley separating us. I'm asking for 100% lot coverage because this home is very narrow and shallow. If I'm only allowed the 80%, it would only give me a 41 feet length home, which is actually only about 3.6 feet bigger than the current home that I have. And as you can see, when Ms. Petrovich shows you the pictures, the home is very awkward, and a bigger setback would be able to give the home much needed space. Also, my goal is to work predominantly with affordable housing, and basically this is independently funded and not dependent on funding from the city. And this is why I would like a decent sized home with a good kitchen and bathroom because I would like to accommodate a family of 3 or 4, which is a very common size family unit that I've encountered with the mayor's homeless program as well as Section 8. I know that my neighbors may oppose this project because they feel that it's not in alignment with the smaller homes on Chapel Street. However, they need to take into consideration that this home is approximately 120 years old and it is also very small and narrow, which makes it unique. And they should consider that in the year 2021, most families are bigger and space is at a premium. And although I understand that they may want me to have a small yard, I feel that it is more important for people to have a bigger living space rather than a small yard. Because, like I said, this home has no basement and it needs that additional space in order to have different storage space. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Petrovich, and she's going to do her slide presentation for me, and you can see visually what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I believe I do need to be.
Yeah, let me pass your ball back.
Hmm?
All right, you should be able to
Okay.
share now.
All right, thank you. And get to this. Okay. Okay, so sorry, it's loading. Okay. So the proposed dimensions for this house would be 15.6 feet by 52 feet. We're proposing for it to be a 3-story house just so that there's enough bedrooms for a small family. And the proposed height is, I believe, 30 feet. So these are some images of the house currently. To the left, you can see the front. To the top left, you can see the front of the house. And then moving over to the right, you can see like the layout of the house is extremely awkward and there's really like no space for people to live. You can also see one of the houses on Pratt Street and the height of that compared to the height of our house, and we're only proposing 30 feet, so it wouldn't be tall enough to block their view from their balconies or anything like that. And then you can also see a image of the back area. Sorry. You can also see an image of the back area on 205 South Chapel, and there is a house right over that is also 3 stories with an added porch on top. And then over here you can see some reference images. So this is the existing first floor. There's barely any space for a normal sized living room or kitchen, especially because there is no basement. You can't have anything, like you can't have normal like amenities without having 0 space in the house. And then this is the existing second floor. There are 2 bedrooms, but they're so small that you could barely fit like a bed, like a twin size bed. So that's just not ideal for any family or anyone really. This is the proposed first floor, which just gives enough space for a normal sized living room, kitchen, and dining area, which would be very small. And then this is the proposed second floor, which would just be 1 small bedroom, 2 small bedrooms, and then I believe 2 bathrooms, and then like a small amount of closet space. And then the proposed third floor, which would just be 2 normal-sized bedrooms and 1 bathroom, which is just barely big enough for about a 3 to 4 person family. The reason we need 3 floors is because there is no basement space at all. So the first floor has just only, it would have to have all the amenities that a normal home has. So there's no space to put maybe like an additional bedroom down there. So if we were to only do 2 floors, there would only be 2 bedrooms and maybe 1 bath, which is not big enough for most families, which is ideal for a residential area because it creates more of a family environment. Then you can see here, you can see the rear elevation and the front elevation. It would only be about 30 feet and it shouldn't be tall enough to block or create any shade or concern for frost. You can also see the site plan here, so it wouldn't be that big. Here are some other reference images of homes. A couple of these homes, one of these homes is on Chapel Street, slightly farther down the road, I believe about 1 block. I believe that would be the one that is in the top left corner. And then a couple other homes that also have 3 stories on Small Street. The 2 homes, the 1 home in the center with 2 pictures, that is the Pratt Street house, which I know there was some concern about a view that would be blocked. But as you can see, it's a very tall house, and I doubt that would cause any problems. And then, yes, that's it. So if anyone would like me to go to previous slides to just review over any plans, that you can tell me.
Can you go back to the side-by-side images?
The side-by-side.
Or the one before that? Yeah, that right there. On the left there, doesn't that look just like the thing we saw in Collington?
Yes, because every home, when you're submitting the drawings, you have to have a site plan. So, but they are different. The measurements are different. Yes, it looks very similar because obviously most row homes do have a similar
It's
shape.
also missing a door. The back one on the first one you showed us had a door, and that one on the back doesn't have a door. It just has 6 windows.
That's because the door. See, this is your sorry. On this.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'm saying that's what makes it different.
Yeah, no. So because it's an alley street house, the door leading out would be to the side.
Okay.
So if you look on the left here, you can see on the flat layout that there's a door on the side. Yeah. So.
Gotcha.
And I believe the architect is a call-in user, so I'm going to try to unmute this individual, but continue to ask questions.
Okay. Yeah. So if there are any more questions, I'm happy to explain.
Someone in the opposition letter, someone questioned where you would put your trash cans.
Trash cans?
Yeah.
So we have a 2.5 feet gap between the house and the alley. So
Ms. Snow, are you familiar with the, I'm sorry, did you get your answer?
No.
Sorry, did you give an answer to Mr. Cunningham's question?
I think we lost Miss No. I think she's been disconnected.
I will show you a picture actually that will help this make sense. Sorry. All right, I will go back here. So as you can see in the images, so if you see right about, if you go to the far left and then move over 1, you can see there's a gap in between the alleyway and the home. It's about a 2.5-foot gap, enough to fit a trash can, and it's a gated area. So there would be a door and a gate, and that's where you can fit the trash can, because we wouldn't make the home wider. We would just keep it as it is currently. So that 2.5-foot gap would be there, and that's where the trash can could fit. If you see, like, right there in between.
What am I looking at?
Wait, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see the screen, but I just don't know what I'm looking at here.
Okay, so if you see the yellow building on the right side, that is the Pratt Street homes, and then right where that small blue building is, like in front of there is an alley, and then where you see the concrete blocks, that is a fence separating the alley from our home. And then if you see on the left side, that's our house. And then in between there's about a 2.5-foot gap, which is big enough to fit a trash can.
Okay.
Okay.
If Ms. No is not on, I had a question, again, just looking ahead to what we think some of the opposition is.
I'm here.
Okay. There's a question about the land use guidelines for the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association. Do you have a copy of that? Have you been given a copy of those guidelines?
So I have spoken with Mr. Jeff May regarding the guidelines. He basically wanted the third story to have a 10-foot setback, and which is what I would prefer not to do.
A 10-foot side setback from what? The front or the back?
From the front.
And why would you prefer not to do that?
I just want the uniformed look of a 3-story row home versus one that I would have to put like a 10-foot.
And the ones on either side of yours, are they 2 stories or 3 stories? Hello?
Ms. No? I don't see her in. There she is. Okay.
I think you may have gotten disconnected,
All
but
right. I just may put her in again, but she might have gotten disconnected.
okay. So what she was explaining is, because we're on an alley in between Pratt Street and Chapel. Well, if you look at the home, depending on where you're standing, but to the right or to the left is the Pratt Street homes. Those homes are about 4 stories, and then if you look to your other side, the homes are 2-story.
So the houses immediately adjacent to yours are 2 stories.
One is a
The homes right next to us are 2 stories. However, there are homes a little bit farther down Chapel Street that are 3 stories, and it looks actually really nice, and no one on that block seems to have any problems with it. And it's only 1 block away.
So the neighbor to the right of me, 207 South Chapel, is 2 stories, but the neighbor to the left of me, which I believe is like something with a Pratt Street address, is 4 stories. So I have neighbors left and right with different height.
Would it help if I showed an aerial and a street view, Bill?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just confused about what I'm looking at.
Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ball back and I'm going to share my screen with CodeMap, with the city's mapping, and then we can do an aerial and a street view.
Okay.
All right. Can you guys see the map?
Okay, okay, yes.
Okay, so this is 205 South Chapel. And I'm going to do a street view. And we're going to turn around. And this is 205 South Chapel.
Yes.
So it looks like in that block, it looks to me like each house is 2 stories on the street front.
Except for there's a few that are 3 stories with a setback.
Where are they?
They're further down that street.
Down that street or
Yes.
block?
On this street. On this block, I'm sorry. Further down this block. It's about, I think it's like 247 South Chapel, something like that.
All right, so here's 205.
207.
Please pardon my Google driving. I'm not the best at it, but here we go.
Yes. Yep, some of those are 3 stories like that one.
So there's...
We just had a note on the screen that said only one house is higher than 2 stories.
Yeah, I think it's 247 or it's 240 something. It's at the end of the block.
Is that the one you're talking about?
That might be it. It has like a side. Yes, that one. I know.
So it's this one.
It's that one, and there's one more. There's like this one, and there's one more down that street. Sorry for the driving.
This is me driving. So I do apologize for that.
Yeah, the one at the right before the school, that one's also 3 stories. I actually spoke with the guy who designed the building.
The one that you just showed us a second ago looked like it was 2.5 stories.
So that's this one.
That one, yeah.
That one there too.
Sorry about that. That's my bad Google driving. Let's try this again. I'm trying not to make anybody sick here. There we go. So now we're back to where this is the subject house.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm just going to slowly drive down the street. And there's this one.
That one, I believe, has like a third story, half of a third story. And then there's one at the end of the block that's also 3 stories. I think it's really difficult to drive to the end of the block, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so now we've kind of crossed over.
I think it's the home.
Next.
Yeah. Those homes are on Chapel Street too, but that's like a separate block. There's one on that 200 block that's 3 stories.
Okay, yeah, we're now on the 300 block of Chapel.
Yeah.
There is that one 3-story home that's on Chapel. It's just on us like 1 block down from our house.
I think that's the 100 block Chapel.
All right. Okay. Bill, does this help?
Yeah, I guess. Do we have anybody online that is affiliated with the Upper Fells Point group?
All right, let's go back to, let's see. We have a lot of people online for this.
Okay.
In opposition, but we also have the architect, if you guys want me to unmute the architect.
Whatever the chair wants to do.
No, I don't necessarily need to hear from him, but I want to get to what the issues are with the opposition so we know what's at issue.
All right, sounds good. And I also, we have one additional letter in opposition that I didn't mention earlier, and that was from Lisa Nickmeyer, and she is also on the line. All right, so we'll start with, I believe, Mr. Prettle. Second. All right, so Ms. Noah, Ms. Petrovich, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. And we're going to start with the opposition now. All right, we'll start with Hoffman. Okay,
Good afternoon.
Go ahead.
Yes, this is Nate Prettle. I'm here with my client, Mark Hoffman. Good afternoon. I'll try. I know there's maybe more folks online than we had anticipated, so I'll try to be brief while touching on everything that needs to be addressed. The first And we are here in opposition to the request for full lot coverage and setback and with a third floor. The first reason that we are opposed are significant inconsistencies in the plans that have been submitted both to the residents through the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association, as well as what was submitted to the zoning board and through zoning. It was available online. And even in the presentation that was just viewed by the board and anyone on here by Ms. Petrovich, none of the dimensions match up. Like, first of all, they say we think it's 30 feet. We have not seen any heights listed whatsoever, so we don't know that. I mean, we can take them at their word. But more importantly, the property, the block plat shows a 17.5-foot property. That is an out-of-date block plat. There have been surveys, deeds recorded in land records that show the property is actually 14.5 feet wide. Sorry, 15 feet wide with a 14.5-foot structure. None of the plans submitted represent, on even the existing plans, what is actually built there. Even in the slide that was just shown, we saw one structure at 17 feet wide. That's not true. The next page there in the presentation showed a structure of 15 feet wide. And so, and then there's another one, when I have a set of plans in my hand that show the property at 12 feet wide. So it's very difficult for a neighbor, and as you mentioned, Mr. Hoffman resides at 1921 East Pratt Street, which is directly to the north of this property. Just across the alley would abut it, other than the 15-foot wide alley. So the problems, with the submitted plans and the inconsistencies, particularly in terms of the structure and lot width, are a big problem. So we're not even sure what is exactly being proposed, and it speaks to sort of a lack of attention to detail from the applicant. I'll move on to the second item is the level of opposition from neighbors, not only Mr. Hoffman, but as stated, the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association, and I counted in my records at least 21 either people on a petition or individual letters opposed to this. And I think the reason for that is, it'll bring to my third point, is this is out of character with the 200 block of South Chapel Street. And to characterize this, well, it's not as tall as on Pratt Street. I mean, Pratt Street, Lombard Street, Baltimore Street through Butchers Hill are the primary streets. They consist of 3 and often 4-story houses. That is true. That's the nature of them. The nature of alley streets is that they're smaller. This block has one, sort of, we'll call it a pop-up more than a third floor, which is very different than the third floor being proposed. But this is, I think the planning department would consider this a coordinated group, and this is a term from their design manual, which I'll touch on in a second. It's my opinion that the design manual would require a 10-foot setback based on anytime you have a coordinated group of 2-story homes, even if the third floor meets the zoning requirements, you're still required to either go to a planning commission hearing or have a 10-foot setback on that. But it seems to me a lot of the justifications, or what I think we're speaking of the justifications of the applicant, are concerned because it's an alley street. An alley street, being on an alley street in and of itself is not a reason to be granted variances. And furthermore, this property is actually the longest on the block of the 200 block of South Chapel Street. So the rationale that we need this big house because of X, Y, and Z, would apply least to this property out of every other property on the 200 block of South Chapel, not more. So it actually speaks to less of a justification to be granted a variance rather than more of a justification to be granted a variance. I'll move on. I heard nothing in regards to the uniqueness tied to a practical difficulty or an unnecessary hardship. There's nothing presented from the applicant. First being the fact that you are on an alley street is not a justification. Every house on this block faces similar, zoned the same, and has similar conditions. None of them have basements. Then this is not, as the applicant said, neither is this a corner property in the sense, sure, it is on a small alley, but the 1919 East Pratt Street would be the corner property, not 205 South Chapel Street. Again, the applicant had mentioned, well, this is a shallow property. It's not. It's the longest at 52 feet is the longest out of the lots that are fronting on the 200 block of South Chapel Street. So, in total, I'm happy to answer any questions. I want to give time to the other people who were signed on, but generally, this is out of character, an extreme out of character with the rest of the 200 block of South Chapel Street. The plans do not even afford us the ability to review them in a way that is required to comment, on an application, and that there has been no justifications presented per the state land use article as well as the Baltimore City zoning code in terms of practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship. And if if need be, I can get into one by one through the variance standards, but I think I will let I have Mr. Hoffman here with me, should he care to add anything. Otherwise, we can turn it over to the rest of the opposition.
I would just say I concur with what Nate said. We've worked on this quite a bit, and it's just totally out of character for the historic nature of Chapel Street. There seems to be no regard for giving us the updated or proper information. Just such a lack of good will on the part of the developer, and a number of problems. And I'll pass it on to the next.
Hold on, is this Mr. Hoffman speaking?
Yes, it is.
Are you with the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association, sir?
I am a member of the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association.
Because I'm just trying to get to at least part of the summary of the opposition is that the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association hasn't been given the materials, all the materials that they need with regard to the land use guidelines.
It looks like Jeffrey May, who's the land use chair, is on.
Okay. All right. We'll hear from him then.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes, it is.
Is your property residential or commercial?
My property is residential.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. May next. Mr. May?
Yes, good afternoon. I want to make sure there's no echo. So yes, the letter we sent in, I tried to send a second letter, which was about the setback, but I just wanted to characterize, Ms. Snow did approach us in the beginning of January about wanting to redevelop several properties. And she did come to one of our meetings. One of the things I presented to her was we have, in order to provide support to a project, we have some guidelines that are published, and they do include some material that we ask to be submitted so we can consider. That includes letters of support from adjoining neighbors. It includes certain photos of elevations, and it also, we state explicitly that no build outs to the dwelling property line will be supported. And we also have a explicit guide about third floor additions as being set back. I did consult with Ms. No. We had a number of conversations about this. As she already mentioned, I did point out I thought a yard actually would be a benefit. So maintaining some space in the back would be probably make it attractive. I also had suggested that that there's a lot of opportunities with the setback that she could do something creative even with the reduced footprint. But in the end, we did not get the material we require to support, so we actually were not able to provide support for this variance.
Mr. Mayor, we saw a photograph of a property that was supposedly on this block of Chapel Street. It didn't have like a full third floor. It looked like it was kind of angled from the front toward the back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir. There's a property down. Go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead.
There is a property further down. It's in the last lot before the school. It's across the street, but down.
And that'd be the 200 block?
Can you ask that again?
Is that the 200?
Yes, sir.
Is that the 200 block?
In the 300 block, there was a photo that she showed of, or during the when you did the street view, we did see a 3-story building in the 300 block of South Chapel, which is just a block away.
My
and it does
question,
not have a setback.
My question was,
But that's
did the Upper Fells Point group approve of the one on the 200 block of Chapel Street?
yes, that one was quite a long time ago. I believe I believe that was approved, and it does have, but like I said, it does have a setback on the third floor. The third floor addition is setback.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Katie, you're muted.
Okay, if there's nothing more from Mr. May, we'll go to, hold on 1 second, Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Maxwell? Mr. Maxwell? Okay, Mr. Maxwell will try to come back to you. He did write in the chat. I will go ahead and read what he wrote in the chat. In the meantime, we'll go to Brian McGalley. Mr. McGalley?
Hi, sorry, I was having trouble getting with the mute. Hi, my name is Brian McGalley. I'm also a resident of Upper Fells Point. I'm also the vice president of the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association. I defer to the characterization that Jeff May, our land use chair, provided because he's much closer to this matter. But we generally prefer that developers, homeowners, people looking to rehab and build properties in the neighborhood follow our land use guidelines and provide information in a timely manner, in a timely basis, and allow us to make a fulsome determination of whether or not we feel like we can support the proposal, and we have not received that information to my knowledge. And I understand the concerns of the neighbors in the area, and would hope to see Ms. No submit plans that are more acceptable to those living in that area. That's all I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Maxwell put in the chat that he strongly opposed, lives across the street from the proposed project. The new homeowners made no attempt to contact myself or any other neighbors I've spoken with about the proposed additions. This is an alley street with no parking, so the construction disturbances would be expensive. After the construction of the proposed additions, this home will become an eyesore and take away from the community morale. Every other house in the 200 block of Chapel Street are two-story dwellings, preserving the long history of our area. This proposed project would definitely take some historical value away from our area. I also believe that this project would affect all neighboring property values in a negative way. In addition, he fully supported what Mr. Hoffman and others had to say. Next one on the call is Lisa Nickmeyer. Ms. Nickmeyer?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I've lived in the neighborhood for about 23 years and have been really involved in the community association, Upper Fells Point Improvement Association. And we are a really vibrant community filled with a lot of active volunteers, both renters and homeowners. And I kind of find it interesting when somebody who has a property, that exists like a small house on an alley street, basically because we have 3 major alleys that go through our community: Register, Durham, and Chapel. And they all have the same character. And then when a developer comes in and says, well, this is complete, nobody could live here, it's too small, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that. That is the character of the alley streets. And, tiny houses are quite the rage right now. I mean, this could be a charming little place. It does not have to be full lot coverage, does not have to be 3 stories. And, there is a lot of development that is happening around our community. We've got Harbor East, we've got below Natty Bow, we've got Middle East. Hopkins is to the north of us. The whole PSO is happening to the west of us, which is going to be a major development. And like I said, Harbor East to the south. We have a lot of development going on around us, and that's great. We welcome businesses and neighbors to the area. But Chapel Street is what it is. It's a historic alley street. And so, I just, again, like what Nate said, to come in and say, we need this, we need to have this, this is unacceptable, this is too small. That's just not a good reason for this proposed development. And I'm not sure that when the information that we got at the community association meeting that was presented was genuine and or accurate. And I just think it's just the wrong kind of development for our neighborhood. It'd be welcome somewhere else, but not necessarily on the 200 block of Chapel Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, Ms. Seguros.
Can you hear me? Yes. I basically agree with Nate Peretti in opposition. I'm also a member of the Upper Fells Point Association. Like Lisa Nickmeyer said, this will destroy the historic nature of Chapel Street, the 200 block, and I feel that once one goes up, the next one and the next one, and then everybody will want to have the same thing. So that's why I oppose this.
Looks like the last one is Joseph Whitford. Mr. Whitford?
Yes, did you get my attachment of my letter I sent?
It has not shown up in my inbox yet, sir. So if you just want to give a brief description, that would be awesome.
Okay, let me send it. Let me pull it up then. So I have my notes. The basic thing is the client came to our meeting with, I'll use the word, very sloppy information and try to do a dance around on many things. The other thing is this is a very historic area. We're trying to keep it historic, and it will be out of character with the other buildings in the area. Plus, the neighbors who live right next door are going to lose their view. Contrary to what the person said, they definitely will lose some view. And the size will be definitely overwhelming for that. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but the thing with the garbage, leaving cans in the alley, even that 2-foot area, is really not acceptable. According to our guidelines, garbage cans need to be taken in every night unless they build a shelter for them. Another rule that's not following. It's definitely not within our guidelines. Buildings that were built 2.5, 3 stories were before the guidelines were fully implemented. And 15 years ago, the rules were a lot more laxed here. It was a different community. We're trying to keep it a nice community now, and the rules are a lot more stricter. That's all I have to say.
Thank you
for your time.
Mr. Whitford, your email did just come in, so your letter will be part of the record.
Thank you.
Okay, and I don't see anyone else raising their hands.
Is Mr. Prettle still there?
I believe so. So I'll unmute Mr. Hoffman. Mr.
Yes,
Prettle?
I'm still here. Yep.
Is this neighborhood a historic preservation area?
So this is a National Register district. It is not a local CHAP district. And so basically you have the carrot, not the stick. But that's why I credit Upper Fells Point Improvement Association through their land use guidelines. And Bill, because you brought this up, I'll mention I was having a conversation with the director of CHAP about the importance of alley streets, I think on Friday. And while this is not a CHAP district, I think Upper Fells' point, they're doing the best they can to maintain the character of alley streets, and so thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. It looks like we had one additional comment from Ms. Nickmeyer. I forgot to mention, Ms. No mentioned affordable housing earlier. First time she mentioned this in any discussions, and I'd like to know how she will guarantee this. All right, I think that's it for opposition. I don't see any other hands raised. So we'll, I guess, turn it back to Ms. No and Ms. Petrovich. So I will unmute both of them.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So I have been in touch with Mr. May, I believe, since the early part of January, and he actually we were trying to work something out, but basically, because he did want that 10-foot setback on the third story, that's why we couldn't come to an agreement, and that's partly why I was not able to give him different drawings. For me, I understand the historical value and that people want to keep the alley street homes small, and maybe for them, the small home works. But I think that the zoning board should also consider that, some people with bigger families may need more space. And because this lot is only 52 in length, if I do 80%, it's actually only 41.6, about 42 feet, which is actually a lot shorter than the majority of homes in Baltimore. The majority of homes are longer than the 42, and that's why I was asking for the 52 feet. I think that if you ask homeowners or developers to build a home, to rehab a home, and since this current home is already at 38, for all this effort for 3.6 feet is very difficult. I want to do a good job in making this home nicer. I've had a lot of complaints from the neighbors because the home is run down, and that the home is in need of rehab. I don't think there's anybody in that area who would disagree with that. I'm very much part of Baltimore City. I live off of Montford. I walk to Chapel Street very often. I walk everywhere actually in Baltimore City. So it's not like I'm some developer that I am just here to flip a house. That's really not the scenario. I'm here to build a home that is big enough to accommodate people with a family, whether they be part of the mayor's homeless program or Section 8. And a lot of these people, potential tenants that I meet, they really want more living space. And that's pretty much why I am going for this variance. It's not necessarily that I just want a big house. No, it's because I meet a lot of people on a day-to-day basis who want more. They want, space indoors for their children. I understand that the 100 feet, that the 100% lot coverage is a lot to ask for, but it is also because this lot is only 52 feet in length. And, I think that the concern is if I build this, that everybody on the 200 block will want to build a bigger house. And I think that that kind of change is not necessarily a bad thing. That maybe it's not just the homes on Pratt Street that should be big. Maybe the alley home owners or the smaller home owners, if they would like to put in that kind of investment, that they are allowed to start this kind of project. It's a huge financial commitment to do this. And I think if you put that kind of pressure on homeowners that they could only really do 80% and stick with it, that it's a very hard rule to follow.
When you bought this property, were you
Yes.
aware of the guidelines of the Upper Fells Point group?
When we bought this home, this was before, I think, before the zoning rule changed. So it was before, I think, the Upper Fells
I didn't
guidelines.
ask that. I asked if you were aware of the Upper Fells Point guidelines, not the zoning code.
Oh, I see. When I bought the house, no, but when I spoke with Mr. May, yes.
When did you buy the house?
We bought the home in 2008. And it has taken us a long time to find the right architect that will take this kind of a project. Because if anybody tries to start a project like this, they're going to find a lot of uphill battle, because a lot of architects, they don't want to take on a project this small. This is a very small house. It is a small project, but at the same time, it requires a lot of financial commitment from the homeowner. And what you're going to find is that a lot of people, they just want to sell the house as is. They don't want to put in the kind of work that I'm willing to put in to make this home, something that's livable. It currently is not livable. And when we bought it, it was barely livable. And it, like I said, I don't even know when the last time this home has been remodeled. It may have been maybe 100 years ago. I think when the home was first built, there was no bathroom. There was no kitchen. It was literally a little box. And all I want to do is to make it something modern, something that, people in the 2021 find it to be attractive. And it's very difficult to do that when I'm only given 3.6 feet more than what I currently have.
But don't you think it's incumbent on the, excuse me, on the home
think I
buyer?
lost you. Oh.
Excuse me? Don't you think it's incumbent on the home buyer to understand the guidelines of the neighborhood association?
Sorry, I think I'm lagging. Can you repeat that, please?
Don't you think it's incumbent on the buyer to understand the guidelines of the neighborhood association?
I think you'll find that when people buy a home, they don't know all the rules pertaining to the association. Like when I first bought the home in 2008, I did not realize that there was an Upper Fells Point Association. I've lived in Baltimore many years. I actually went to law school here. I've been here for over 20 years, but I did not realize that there were these associations because they're not really advertised anywhere. So I actually first became aware of them within the last 2 years. And so for you to ask, was I aware of these guidelines is a little bit, I don't even know what to say, because like I said, they're not exactly advertised when you try to buy a home in Baltimore, that there are these associations and that there are these guidelines. So many homeowners will buy a home thinking that that they could remodel it and then find themselves, like I said, in an uphill battle because the home is too small, the project is too big, the financial investment is too big. And for 3.6 feet, which is exactly, the amount that I will get if I do 80%, it's kind of a sad thing, I think. I think that people want Baltimore to retain its historical nature, yes, but at the same time, a lot of these homes are very run down and they need to be rehabbed. And I think it's important to encourage people who want to rehab it to be able to fix them up. If you only give them 3.6 feet or 80% of the lot coverage, yes, if you have a bigger lot, it makes sense. But when you have a very small lot, like I said here, that's why 207 also they were able to extend 100 feet into the backyard, because even at that, it's very small lot.
You keep talking about 3.6 feet. Aren't we actually
Yes.
talking about the third floor?
We're here on the third floor, and we're here on rear yard setback and
Yeah, this is about the rear yard setback.
Well, I feel
maximum
like
lot coverage.
conversations.
What did you say?
So I feel like we're having two different conversations. That you talk about the 3.6 feet, and it seems to me pretty much everyone else is talking about a third floor.
I mean, if everybody is okay with 100% lot coverage and that I build a 10-foot setback on the third floor, then that's something, sure, I could work with that. But if you give me 80% and a 10-foot setback on the third floor, I mean, that's very difficult to work with. So my variance request is for 100% lot coverage. So most of my talking is about being able to build back into the setback. The only reason why I want to build tall is because I don't want to dig out a basement. That is not something I want to do, and I don't think that's something that my neighbors would want either.
Ms. Byrne, with regard to the requirements that the applicant has to show,
So,
to review.
so in order for the board to grant a variance, under the zoning code, she would have to prove unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty that exists. And there's also a uniqueness. What's unique about this particular property that she's encountered this practical difficulty or hardship?
And Ms. No, do you believe you've spoken to all those issues in support of your request for these variances?
I feel that I have, sir, because like I said, I think this particular lot is very shallow at 52. Perhaps other lots are shallower, but it does not discount the fact that at 52, it is still a very shallow lot. And I think that this project is unique because this home already extends at 38, and I just would like to have that additional setback in order to build the kitchen.
But you guys recognize you could build a smaller kitchen, right?
I just the whole goal of
No,
this
my
house.
question is, you want a kitchen size that you want, right?
I would like to have a kitchen size that is a decent size, as in I want to be able to have more than one person fit in the kitchen. I would like to have it so that at least 2 or 3 people can go in at the same time, because I feel like cooking is a cultural thing, and a lot of times people want to be in the kitchen at the same time. And this current home, it's like a kitchenette. It's like smaller than some kitchens and motels, and I feel that the practical difficulty is that for the kind of financial commitment this home requires to be rehabbed, I think 100% setback is necessary in order to have a home that's livable, and in order to have a home that is something that's presentable to potential tenants. I'm not looking to flip this house. I'm not trying to build a big house and just sell it. That's not my intention. Like I've said before, my goal is to work in affordable housing and to work with the homeless project, with the mayor's office, as well as Section 8. And my goal is to build a home that would attract those kinds of people, that those what people in those programs find to be desirable, which they definitely look at the size of the home and space. And for me, I think that if I were to only build 3.6 feet back from the current size of the home, it is just very, very small.
Did you provide interior photos of the home in your application?
Let me see. I do.
I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I do not unfortunately have it on me right now. The interior is horrible.
Well, see, that would be helpful for us to see, given your explanation of the uniqueness and hardship as to what it is you're trying to change.
The interior is just, it is the most rundown.
I appreciate the description.
Yeah.
A photo would be better. You understand?
I understand, sir.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else? Is there anything else you'd like to add, or is there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. Ms. No, would you entertain going back with the Upper Fells Point Association and your neighbors and try to reach a conclusion that's more favorable?
As in, like the 3rd floor setback, you mean?
Well, any accommodation, frankly. We on the board, obviously, we encourage discussion. What we hear from the opposition is that they felt like they didn't get all the information, even if ultimately you disagree, and you may not come to an agreement, but you should be dealing with the same information, to make those determinations. And I don't think I'm quite hearing that everybody feels like they know what the actual intent is, what the actual plans are, given some of the prior information that they had. You may feel differently, but certainly it would be helpful if you were all on the same page, and then you could go from there to see if you could reach an accommodation.
I mean, I could talk to them if I don't know exactly. I obviously can't talk to everybody that was present today because that would be, I'm sure I won't be able to come to an agreement with everyone.
No. So that would be frankly impractical as well.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
yeah,
burden you with tracking down everybody who has an opinion.
sure.
But certainly, I think they would be in a position to identify a spokesperson and to at least roll up all of those issues so that you know what all the issues are that are opposing your efforts, and that you can reasonably, seek to reach an accommodation if you can. And certainly, you may not be able to, but I think that's a good suggestion from Mr. Cunningham if the parties were willing to do that.
I also would guess that the Upper Fells Point group would be willing to take the lead in that.
So you want me to talk to Mr. May?
Well, we'd like you to talk with anybody who has the opposition and certainly who has the voice of the opposition, that somebody could come back here and say, these parties have either considered, or tried to reach an accommodation, and they can or they can't.
Can somebody raise their hand from the opposition and kind of self-appoint so that she has some starting point as to how to have this conversation?
Yeah, and so we're not discounting the discussion that you've already had. I know you've met with the groups in the past. It's just that today it seems like maybe there might be some more information that they need.
It looks like I think we have still both Mr. Hoffman, or Mr. McGalley, who I believe is the Fells Point, is on the board for the Fells Point. So Mr. McGalley, I'm going to unmute you. Mr. McGalley?
Yeah, I mean, if Ms. No would like to reach out to me, I can coordinate with Jeff May, who again is our land use chair, to see about setting up further discussions to see if there's any kind of agreement that can be reached on the development of the property.
Because I take it, Mr. May, in a perfect world, everybody could agree on everything, but we'd rather have homes, rehabbed and updated than, eyesores on your block within, certain parameters. So seems to us it would behoove everyone if they could, if you all could come together, at least another shot, some more efforts to talk through the remaining differences and to see if some accommodation could be reached.
I agreed. Yeah, it would definitely benefit the neighborhood to have properties which are in disrepair, such as this one, updated and rehabbed. Again, this is Brian McGalley. This isn't.
Sorry, Mr. McGalley.
No trouble. So I think if Ms. No could actually contact Jeff May, because she has his contact information already, I'll reach out to him as well, and then perhaps we can set up a follow-up meeting with a few folks to see if there's areas where we can reach areas of dispute where we can find some sort of common solution.
Sure. And Ms. No, just so you know, we're not suggesting that this ought to take forever. There comes to a point that the parties believe that they're, again, too far apart. You can't reach agreement. Just stay in touch with Ms. Byrne and let us know when you'd like to come back. But we do want those discussions to have been had, because that would benefit the board's thinking as we deliberate, if we have to.
Wait, hold on. Give me one second, would you?
Sure.
All right.
And just to note, we had yeah, I will mute you.
Thank you.
We had also had another opposition from Miss Rosso, who wasn't able to raise her hand in time. She notes that both Ms. No and Ms. Petrovich have owned the property since 2008, have not been responsive to the complaints of neighbors during that time. no improvements to the property at all, and she's in opposition to the current building proposal.
Okay, good.
So similar to what others have submitted.
Sure.
And we still have one more application for Miss No after this
Right.
one.
We'll hear her come back and see how we resolve this. Right now, what we're proposing is a postponement. So for further discussion.
Miss No, when you're ready, you can unmute yourself if you would like to proceed with the postponement.
Hello.
Yes.
So is it possible then that I could just have the next hearing date so that I could just have that one postponement, and then if I'm not able to come to an agreement, then I guess the board will just have to make their decision.
Well, you can let us know when that could be reset, when it can be set back in, and then you can govern your discussion schedule, based on that. That's fair.
I mean, I don't think I need more than like a week, but I know the next hearing is like June 29th or something like that, right?
Correct. The next hearing is not until June 29th. I know we just pushed somebody else there, but let me see what it looks like right now.
Yep.
So that would put 23 cases on the docket next time if we add Miss No to the next docket.
Okay. Well, I think given how much time we've spent, to the extent there's some additional information that drills down on those competing issues, I think we can accommodate one more, at least this particular case.
Okay.
Thank
on the next docket.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead and postpone this matter for today's docket. The board obviously will not deliberate on it, and we will await word of any success, hopefully, of any future discussions. But otherwise, it'll come back before the board on June 29th.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Miss No, I will leave you and Miss Petrovich here as panelists since the next matter is yours as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And that would be the final matter on this docket, 2021-052, 1826 Bank Street. And this also involves Ms. No being the appellant. Also involves the construction of a two-story rear addition and third floor addition. I'll hear any reports you may have from staff and planning.
Mr. French, did you have anything on this one?
Planning Department had no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay, again, similar to the prior application, this is to construct a two-story rear addition and a third floor addition. The variances requested are maximum lot coverage. 80% is the maximum, 95% is proposed. The rear yard setback variance is 20 feet is required. 4 feet is proposed, so that would be a 16-foot variance. We have one letter of support from Dennis Burns. I did receive 2 letters that Ms. No just emailed in support for this particular property as well. We have letters in opposition from Jessica and Grant Pimentel, the neighbors, a letter from the Upper Fells Improvement Association that it cannot support the appeal because Ms. No did not provide all the material for the land use guidelines that were required for additional support. And we have attorney for the protestants has submitted a large document as well that was uploaded and supplemented in the board's packet. And he will go ahead and prepare that as well. So that's it for staff.
Who's the attorney?
Neil Lanzi.
I don't think I have that.
All right, we'll go ahead and we'll email that, make sure that, I think Simon sent additional emails out Friday and today. But I don't, yeah, it was not in the packet that we gave to you on Thursday, Bill. So you don't have the hard packet, but he'll walk through the exhibits.
Okay.
Should I go now?
Yeah. Ms.
Okay.
No, yeah, you are, go ahead.
Okay. So the lot size for 1826 Bank Street is 17 by 59. The current home size is 17 by 44. I would like a setback of 4 feet and be allowed to build the home to 55 feet. Without a variance, the maximum allowance would be 80% of the lot, which would be 17 by 47.5. I'm asking for the 7.5 feet on top of that in order to reach the 55 feet. It will give me a lot coverage of 93%. The remodeling for this home is beneficial to the neighborhood, I believe, because this home also is in disrepair, and the current home has 3 stories. So I would just like to extend the 3rd story out. My neighbor's 1824 Bank Street, which is Mr. Dennis Burns. I believe he is the one who was able to submit the letter of support. And I also have 1828 Bank Street, Mr. Contreras Augusto. I have spoken with him and he has said that they're okay with me extending the home by 55 feet. And also, Mr. Burns has expressed that he is also interested in the process and doing so himself. Mr. Augusto's home was remodeled in 2019, and his home actually extends currently to 59 feet, and it covers the majority of 326 Wolf Street. I know that 326 Wolf Street is one of my opponents. The reason why I'm asking for a setback of 4 feet is that my current home is 44 feet, and I would like to have a 11-foot on top of the 44 feet that the first floor already has. Again, this home is similar to 205 South Chapel, has no basement, and it also did not have a decent sized kitchen or laundry room. So the original design of the kitchen had the laundry inside of the kitchen and a water heater inside of the kitchen and virtually no cabinet space. And that is what I would like to change. With only 80% of the lot coverage, it would only give me 3.5 feet on top of the 44 feet that I already have. Again, this is such a small amount to invest this kind of time and effort, and the reason for me asking for this variance. I would like the 11 feet in addition to the 44 feet that I have in order to build a straight set of stairs, a laundry room, an HVAC, and storage for a water heater. I think that the 4-foot setback is enough to give my neighbor at 326 Wolf Street enough space for light and air, because the majority of the home at 326 Wolf Street is actually behind my neighbor at 1828 Bank, not behind me. Only a small portion of the home is actually behind me, which is, I believe, the kitchen. And the owners of 326 Wolf Street have built a high fence that already blocks out most of their light, and there is a pre-existing shed in my property, which is at the end of the property line. It is my goal that I want to take the shed out so that the owners at 326 Wolf Street could have a complete wood fence instead of half of a wood fence and half of a shed. I also have a very large tree in my backyard, which blocks out a lot of the light that comes into 326 Wolf Street because it is so massive. I would like to take this tree out so that they would have a better access to light. My architect, hopefully, he will be able to add on to my conversation here, is that he has over 25 years experience and he has done a sun study that shows that a 4-foot setback will not negatively affect my neighbor at 326 Wolf Street. My plans for this home, again, similar to the ones for 205 South Chapel, is to make it an affordable housing dwelling. I have over 15 years experience working with different housing programs, such as the Mayor's Homeless Program, Section 8, and BRHP. And because of that, I have a lot of experience knowing the needs of these families and knowing the kind of homes that they're looking for because they have small children. So if possible, if you could add if you could also hear testimony from my architect. I believe he was that caller number 17.
Let me
Sure.
find the call-in user.
Is this property presently occupied?
It is vacant. It was occupied by a BRHP tenant before.
And when did you purchase it?
I purchased this house, I believe in 2009.
I do not see, there are no longer any call-in users.
I see.
Is Ms. Petrovich, is she testifying on
She
this
is.
one? Okay,
She is.
I've passed her the ball if she wanted to share screen with you.
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, so I have images for them as well. I will show that in just a second. Sorry.
Okay, Ms. Petrovich?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. I will share. Let me make sure I have this up. Okay. Okay. So this is for 1826 Bank Street. 1 minute, sorry. That was, and then so for this home, it would be 17 feet by 55 feet. And it's currently a 3-story house. We just want to fully extend the 3rd story. And then there will be a 4-foot setback in the back, which is enough space for light and air. And the proposed height is 34 feet, which is 1 foot below the maximum. So this is a couple of pictures of the back of the house currently. So at the far left, you can see there's a wood fence there, and right behind that is the window of our neighbors on Wolf Street. And currently half their window is actually covered by the wood fence. And there's also a existing shed there, which is an eyesore for, I'm sure, our neighbors in the back as well. There is also a tree there which blocks, I'd say, about 50% of sunlight. And as you can see here, the backyard is pretty run down currently, and I'm sure it would be much better if it was fully renovated. And then here you can see the existing 1st floor, which includes the shed at the back. And then you can also see the existing 2nd floor and then the existing 3rd floor. So the existing 3rd floor currently is kind of like a large box sitting on top, and we just want to extend that fully because it's not really a usable space. Here you can see the proposed 1st floor, which is just big enough for a normal sized kitchen, laundry, HVAC, and water heater. And then for the proposed 2nd floor, just 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a closet. And then for the proposed 3rd floor, 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. And then this is the rear elevation and front elevation. And yes, it does look similar to the other drawings, but it is not the same because the measurements are slightly different. And then here you can see the site plan and the proposed addition, which would just be filling in a little bit of the width that is already existing in the front part of the house, but just not in the back addition. And then adding in that 11-foot space just to have like a bigger kitchen and a water heater, HVAC, maybe just more space. And then, but there is still 4 feet in the back there, which is enough space for their window, which is already covered, actually. Okay. So if there are any questions, I can go back to maybe the photos.
Were your plans submitted to the Upper Fells Point group?
Yes, they were, I believe.
You believe did you participate? Sorry.
Sorry. I'm pretty sure they were.
Well, we need more information, I'm pretty sure.
Huh?
I said I'd like to have a little more information than pretty sure. That doesn't really mean much to me.
They were. Yeah, they were submitted.
Who's speaking now?
This is still Emma Petrovich.
Actually, it was submitted by me, Eden No, to Jeff May.
And how did that conversation go?
It was actually, I think, better than the conversation 205 South Chapel Street because I think both of my neighbors to my left and right, as I said before, Mr. Dennis Burns and Mr. Augusto are in favor of this project.
Mr. May is also on the line, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
And it looks like we have a call-in user, so I'll see if this is your architect, Miss No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, are you the architect?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Ike Okoye. I'm the architect on this project, 1826 Bank Street. I understand there's an opposition. Is that something that we can discuss?
Well, understanding is you're here to speak to, pardon the barking hounds. You're here to speak to and support the requested renovations. Yes, there is opposition. I'm not sure if you're aware of what the opposition is, but
Yeah,
we'd like to hear whatever you have to say.
Yeah, she's seeking a 4-foot setback in lieu to the setback requirement. And the only reason for this is these houses were built in the not in the early 1900s, and codes have changed or have been updated quite a bit since then. You can no longer have winding stairs or narrow stairs or stairs with high risers. So, we have to put the stair runs, which is a lot longer than it used to be. And room sizes, minimum room size is now about 70 square feet, which you can no longer, include in designs. It has to be a little bit bigger than that. So all these extensions have actually extended the depth of the footprint. And we're removing the existing shed, which is at the rear, to accommodate the new depth of the footprint. It's a very narrow alley. And the windows at the back, if they're anything less than 10 feet from the neighbor, it has to be less. I mean, we're more than 10 feet for it not to require to be fire rated. And for every bedroom windows, we need to have egress windows at the rear.
Okay. Right. That's actually very helpful information. Appreciate that.
Yeah, the increase in depth is just, just to be able, it's adjusted to accommodate the present IRC building code.
Okay. Question for Mr. Ikoye, I think.
Yes, Mr. Koya, yeah.
Thank you. All right.
So it's seeking for a variance. The hardship is not. It's not. I don't believe it's not self-made. It's just trying to meet the current code and size of bedrooms and accommodation for today's habitat.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Katie, you're muted.
Okay, if if there's nothing else, should we move to opposition?
Sure.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Lanzi. Mr. Lanzi, I've made you a panelist. And you should be unmuted, sir.
I believe I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Neil Lanzi. I'm an attorney with Wright Constable and Skeen here in town. And I'm here on behalf of the Wheelers who live to the rear.
I'm sorry, where do they live?
Yeah, let me give a little bit better sense of it. So Miss No she is at lot 31 and Mr. Wheeler is lot 35. And you'll see when we get the exhibits to you, I don't know if you have them now, but we have a block plat that just shows the Wheeler property just kind of backs up to the rear of the Miss No's. And so on behalf of the Wheelers, we are in opposition. We have submitted 5 exhibits, and then we supplemented today with Mr. Wheeler's testimony, but he's still going to speak very, very briefly, but we wanted to make sure you got it in writing. And as was presented in the beginning by Ms. Burns, the R8, as you know, allows the lots that are under 100 feet go down 1% with a cap of in this case, it would be 15 feet. So the rear yard would be 15 feet. If you take the 20 that's allowed, and then you limit it to the cap of 25%, that leaves it with 15. And she's trying to go to 4, which is significant. I believe the initial application was 0. And she's also trying to have all 3 floors at 4 feet, not just the first 2 with the 3rd floor setback from the rear yard. And so when you look at the zoning table, look at the zoning code 15-403A and B, that confirms what I just said. In the table 9-401 limits the lot coverage to the 80%. And so what I'd like to do, rather than go on too much myself, just let Mr. Wheeler speak, and then I have a land use consultant, Mr. Doak, who will also talk. I did want to point out just a couple of things to the board that I found very interesting with the applicant's case. She indicated there was a lot of talk about a neighbor at 1828 supporting this and a letter that was allegedly provided to you all. Well, interestingly, our exhibit has that exact person signing, this is our exhibit 5, signing opposition. So you have much testimony about a neighbor, immediate neighbor supporting this who does not. That's number 1. 2, there was a mention of, I think you asked the question, when did you purchase this property? I'm looking at the SDAT sheet for this property, and it was purchased, it must have been a foreclosure at 2015, not 2009. And the other comment I would have, because I have been listening to all of the other cases before this, since it was a common applicant, and it appears And I believe Ms. Snow indicated she went to law school. So one would think she would understand what due diligence requires when you're about many, many properties as she currently has. And it just appears that the plans that have been presented in the other cases, and I believe, if I heard correctly, the plans provided did not satisfy the Upper Fells Point requirements. So what we have are plans that aren't necessarily accurate or understandable, and maybe not enough for people to make intelligent decisions. So with that, I would call Mr. Grant Wheeler. If he is, I think he should be ready to be connected.
Mr. Lanzi, is he coming in through the internet or as a call-in?
I believe he is internet.
Okay. All right, there I see you, Mr. Wheeler. I will make you a panelist. And Mr. Wheeler, you are unmuted.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Thanks to the board. I'll just make this as brief as possible, just to highlight my initial letter of opposition. The first issue to this proposed property is primarily privacy, with the proposed property setback of only 4 feet. The south-facing windows of my kitchen, dining room, and second floor bedroom would be directly facing the proposed property's windows at a distance of only 7 feet. In addition, there would be a direct view into both the west-facing windows in my second floor bathroom and third floor bathrooms at an angle. The second issue is sanitation. As a landlord, Eden Know has a poor record in maintaining issues with trash even after numerous citations. The proposed plans allow for significantly less space in the back for managing the trash cans. The proposed first floor also seemingly cuts off access to the shared alley for both 1826 and 1824 Bank Street, which creates an issue for moving garbage cans out to the street, not only for the proposed property, but actually for both properties. Third, the hardship claim by Eden Know is not experienced by other properties on the block for owners and renters alike, all along Bank Street. The neighboring properties set back the neighboring properties set back their third floor farther back than the first and second floor to help preserve privacy for the neighboring properties. Fourth, the safety concerns for these properties warrant some very serious red flags. The house was initially not permitted for demolition, and yet the back half was demolished by unlicensed workers with absolutely no lead remediation procedures. Neighbors fear that corners will be continued to be cut throughout any further demolition and subsequent construction processes, simply to preserve her bottom line. And lastly, and what I kind of think most important, and to the kind of character of this one party in support of doing this project, is I simply feel that Ms. Know has misrepresented facts to her neighbors and to the board for the purpose of obtaining her variance. She stated in a community meeting on March 16th and to the board just recently that she obtained approval from the neighbors at 1824 and 1828 for her variance plans, which the one owner that we were able to locate confirmed not to be true. That would be Tony Contreras. He has also signed the letter opposing, and I also do have an email from him discussing his discussion with Miss No, who simply said that she was doing a renovation in her house and asked him if that was okay. She also stated to the board on May 6th that she had signs up for 21 days notifying the community about a May 18th hearing that was eventually postponed, but they had fallen down in a rainstorm. However, community members attest that they did not go up until May 6th once the board had been notified of no signage on May 5th. I'll mind you that this happened at 2 different properties simultaneously. So I guess a rainstorm knocked down 2 signs simultaneously. Either way, those are my bullet points here, and I will also note from a previous testimony earlier in one of the other properties that the Upper Fells Point Association does in fact advertise. They put letters in everybody's mailbox every month. So for her to not be aware of its existence is pretty hard to believe. So I received them immediately upon moving there in 2017. And that's all. Thank you.
Grant, before you leave, I had some questions. I had some questions for you.
Sure.
And I actually wanted to get the exhibits up before you started, but I couldn't catch you in time. Is it possible, Ms. Burns, for me to?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will pass you the ball.
And I did want to mention to the board, and Mr. Wheeler can confirm that he did authorize me to reach out to Ms. Snow, and in fact, expended a fair amount of time, effort, and money with his land use consultant, coming up with proposals and plans that were ultimately rejected outright by Ms. Snow. So I wanted the board to know that. Okay, are you able to see? Board able to see this?
Not yet.
Oh, I have it on my screen. So where's the share?
So when you click on it, and sometimes it makes you push share twice.
Okay, so I need to, I guess, minimize.
If it doesn't, there we go. Yep, it's coming.
Got it? Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, so this is the list that I submitted to the board. I believe it was Friday. Apologize for not getting it a little bit sooner. And we also did supplement it with the written testimony, basically what Mr. Wheeler just read into the record. What I wanted to do is first go to the last exhibit, which is number 5. And that was the letter that was submitted by Mr. Wheeler to his neighbors. And I don't want to repeat what's just been said, but it speaks for itself. And Mr. Wheeler, if you could just, a couple things. First of all, what's your exact address for your property?
It's 326 South Wolf Street.
Okay, and how's that oriented to the subject property, the applicant's property?
It is it's at the rear yard of 1826 Bank Street. And it's the rear of that property is located to the side of my house, and there's a 3-foot wide walkway on my property between the rear property line of 1826 Bank Street and the south-facing walls of my house.
Okay. I'm gonna reverse myself, and what I'll do is show the board what's marked as Exhibit 1, which is the block plat, which shows Lot 35. That's your property, correct, Mr. Wheeler?
Yes.
Highlighted in blue, and then 31, which is the no property, highlighted in red. Okay. And then I'll take you to the photographs. I'm going to have Mr. Doak, our land use consultant, go into further detail, but since this is your residence, I'm sure you're familiar with this. So does this help? Are you able to explain to the board how the applicant's property impacts your property at all from this photograph?
Yes, so you can see you can see my kitchen window there, and subsequently the dining room windows are hiding behind that little outcropping of brick. But
Excuse me, can you point to what you're speaking about?
Are we able to point, Ms. Byrne?
There you go. That's fine. If you use the curve.
Okay, so
Your hand is the pointer.
Okay, Neil, if you could point to the window just to the left of what you're pointing to now. Right there. Yep. Thank you. That's the south-facing kitchen window. That would be looking directly into the windows that are proposed on the back end of the building. About, if she were to be 4 feet set back, would be 7 feet from my windows. The other windows that you can't see along that wall are the dining room windows, which are in fact like one window is in fact adjacent to the property, and then subsequently on the second floor, directly above the dining room, is the second floor bedroom, which also one of the two windows would be looking directly into Miss Snow's property, 1826.
Which is Miss Snow's property on the right?
It would be the shed that is that you're looking at. There's a kind of like rooftop sort of material right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
That's a shed?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right, see if there's any, scroll through the others. Does that help?
Help with what? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to establish what this photograph shows
Yes.
for the board.
Okay. Yeah, that's a picture of the shed that occupies the back of the property. It's attached to the stone wall that adjoins all of the properties.
So the property, the expansion is going to come right out from where my hand is.
Yeah.
Towards you as you view the screen. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's currently the view about from the kitchen window right now. Looking up a little bit. I think that's actually from the walkway.
And that's your walkway that goes between the properties?
That's correct.
And that's the back of the no property? Where
That's correct.
That's open?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's one more photograph. Is that the walkway you were talking about?
So that's part of the shared alley between 1824 Bank Street and 1826 Bank Street. Yeah. In the proposed drawings, it cuts off that alleyway, which both the neighbors have access to take their trash out, which is what I mentioned in my testimony a little bit earlier.
Okay. I believe this.
And that's just 1824 Bank Street.
Okay. And what does this photograph show?
That looks to be, that's the backyard of 1824 and I think 1822 Bank Street. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to give the board a sense of the property, and then I'll have Mr. Doak go through the rest of these. But the one exhibit I was starting to go to, which is, I believe, number 5. Okay. I asked you about a letter. So this is the letter that was directed to the board. You've just summarized kind of the highlight points of the letter. And this was presented to and signed by your various neighbors, including Mr. Contreras?
That's correct.
Okay. And so are these property owners in the immediate vicinity? There's your name first up. Are they in the immediate vicinity of the no property?
Yes. So Tony Contreras' property is next door. David Byrne, or I think that's what the name was, for 1824 Bank Street. I actually was completely unable to find his contact information, so was not able to address him.
Do you know, does he own the property and rent it to tenants, or does he live there?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
You believe he rents it?
Yeah, so there's a Guatemalan family in there right now. So I'm pretty sure that's not David. I think I met David one time when he was like transitioning the property to another tenant.
Okay. So I saw 1820, I'm seeing 1830, and here's Mr. Contreras. Okay. All right. This petition was done within the last 30 days before this hearing?
Yes.
Okay. All right, just make sure, nothing else you wanted to to cover, no, I believe we covered what you wanted to. And you also mentioned that Upper Fells Point does notify neighbors of the organization, or property
Yes.
owners, I should say. Okay.
Yes. I receive a letter in my mailbox every month.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for Mr. Wheeler. I'm going to call Bruce Stoke, who is our land use expert.
Well,
Unless there's a question of Mr. Wheeler.
No.
none.
All right, Mr. Doak is now a panelist.
Okay.
And Mr. Wheeler, I'm just going to mute you.
Hi, Mr. Doak. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. Can you just state your name and business address?
My name is Bruce Doak. My address is 3801 Baker Schoolhouse Road, Freeland, Maryland, 21053.
And you're a surveyor, zoning and land use consultant, is that correct?
That is correct.
How long have you been doing these things?
43 years.
Okay. And have you been offered and accepted as an expert in these three areas before the zoning commissioner, administrative law judge, board of appeals, circuit court, and in fact, I believe this board as well?
Yes, sir, I have.
I'm going to present Mr. Doak as an expert in zoning, land use, and surveying. Mr. Doak, did you have an opportunity to go down to the property in question?
Yes, sir, I've walked around the block, taken photographs, been in Mr. Wheeler's home, so I'm very familiar with the site.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is just kind of have you walk through these exhibits. I know we covered some of it with Mr. Wheeler. The block plat that's marked as petitioners 1, was that obtained from public records?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
It's published by Baltimore City. I did this so the board could understand the relationship of Ms. No's property to Mr. Wheeler's and how it adjoins.
Okay. And Exhibit 2, which is the photograph key sheet, did you prepare that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And just tell me what those letters A through G and arrows, what all that means.
You'll notice that each of the photographs have a letter on the bottom right-hand corner, and this shows where each photograph was taken from and the orientation of that photograph.
Very good. And try to avoid repetition, but if you could just show or testify as to what each photograph represents.
This is standing at the common line between Miss No and the Wheeler property. That fence is approximately that rear division line between those. I took this to be able to show the relationship between Miss No's property as it exists and Mr. Wheeler's, and then also to be able to use it as a narrative to understand what would come about should Miss No be approved for a 4-foot setback. Give me a second on this one, if you would, please.
We do.
If you can see as Mr. Wheeler pointed out, the shed there, that will be removed. But let's get an understanding of where this setback would be. The back of the building, Miss No's building, should she be approved. If you see that wire coming down from the pole and the vegetation there, that would just about be the 4 feet off the property line and be the back of her proposed addition. So you'll see that, as Mr. Wheeler said, it's approximately 7 feet. Now take that and extend it for 30 feet in the air. You're going to see nothing but a sheer wall that they say is not going to block the light in the air, but I can tell you it will. And the windows on the first floor of Mr. Wheeler's house, no matter which direction you look, with up or down, you're only going to be able to see the back of that house. Also, the question comes about what What are they going to do with the rear 4 feet? How are they going to maintain it? There's no access, no doorway into that. And by this photograph, you're going to see that that will set much farther forward to the rear than the house next to it. And there's other photographs that are going to show on the other side as well. So,
Okay.
Can we proceed to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wheeler pointed out, and once again, I took this one to be able to show that it's not going to just be the first floor windows, it's going to be the second floor windows that are going to be impacted, blocked. So it isn't like this is going to be back as far as the adjoining house. That's what we have always proposed, something similar to that. What they're proposing to do is have it another 7 feet forward. So in turn, it will be 4 feet off of the most protruding wall of the Wheeler's house, and then 7 feet off of the face with the windows there. If we could move forward. You can see it as well here. She's going to butt it up against that adjoining house and get rid of the shed. So that's what this was showing. Now, something that has been mistaken all along in the architect's drawings as well as the presentation, the property line, and I've been a surveyor for 43 years, the property line goes down the center of that covered alleyway. So in turn, you can see where that provides access to both the subject property as well as the adjoining property. Their proposal spans the proposed addition spans the whole width. That way it would be blocking that alleyway, which is not allowed. You'd be blocking half of it. Let me put it that way, be blocking.
Am I showing the alleyway correctly?
You are, yes, sir.
Okay, and this picture is taken from what room in the Wheeler house?
It would be taken from the kitchen dining room right there, directly back into the house. Now, you'll see that it has the part that's open, and then it recesses back to another plane where the window is, and then it recesses again back to where the covered alleyway is. What she's proposing is to bring all of that forward to almost the back of that tree you see in the foreground. Okay? So you can see what an intrusion this will be to Mr. Wheeler and the adjoining properties.
Mr. Doak, how
Yes,
wide is that,
sir?
how wide is that area that you describe as a covered alley? Yes.
Usually, sir, they're about 3 feet, 2'9", somewhere in there.
Okay.
You're a big man. It would be just a little wider than your shoulders, usually.
Thank you.
Once again, this shows the alleyway, and the reason I took this is because you can see that it provides access not only to subject property, but also to the adjoining property. That wall is approximately on the property line, so you could extend that through, and you can see that no longer does the adjoining property have access to the rear of their property. You can also see that their property sits back what we're requesting or what should be required of Ms. No. Once again, this shows the adjoining property to her. You can see that it has a setback that allows for light and air in the rear, also allows for a rear yard that can be utilized for not only storage, but for the enjoyment of their property as well. And last, for the photographs, this is the once again the adjoining property, and the property next door would be 1822. You'll see that the rear of it is once again the same setback from the property line. You can see the extension of the fence, which is approximately the property line, and you can see that the first and second floor is of one setback, and then the third floor is of a much more of a setback. I took many photographs, walked around the neighborhood, and out of all the houses I saw no third floors at the same setback as the first and second.
Okay, and you took these photographs, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
In the last month or two?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. I'm not sure how formal the board is, but I'd like to offer the block plat, the photograph key, and the photographs into evidence for the record. And I'd like to just...
Yep, so admitted.
Thank you. Before we go to the Exhibit 3, I'm going to skip over Exhibit 4, which is identified as the deed. Mr. Doak, did you obtain a copy of the deed for the subject property, for the applicant's property?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and that was obtained from public records?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you use that deed when you were looking at the dimensions on the proposal or the applicant? You did?
You'll see that this was purchased in 2015. Mr. Lanzi, if you will scroll down, it has a meets and bounds description. It also states in this deed that Ms. No will continue to live here, will live here on this premises as owner occupied. This is a meets and bounds description. I'm sure everybody in the board understands what that is. It's in pretty much every deed. It says the beginning on the north side of Bank Street, a distance so far from the northeast corner of Bank and Durham Street, and at the center of a covered alleyway, they're situated easterly dividing on Bank Street, 17 feet 5 3/4 inches to the center of a partition wall, thence northerly along the center of partition wall and continuing the same course, 60 feet 2 inches, and the southernmost outline of this, westerly binding on said outline, 15 feet 6 inches, then southerly to and through the center of said covered alleyway, here I mentioned 60 feet 2 inches to the side of Bank Street and the place of beginning. Two things come to mind here is that all of the other descriptions on that street along there call for 59 feet as a depth of the property. This one calls for 60 feet 2 inches. Also, it doesn't take a surveyor to figure this out. One along Bank Street is 17 feet 5 3/4 inches wide, and then back at the back is 15 feet 6 inches. So there's a problem there with the deed, and it also calls for the center of that covered alleyway.
And the applicant's plans that were submitted do not reflect the dimensions as shown in the deed, correct?
Nor do they reflect the covered alleyway.
Understood. And you did mention that the deed calls for this to be owner occupied?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. And just for the board's information, I'm looking at a board decision from 2020, case number 2020176. The same applicant testified under oath that she would be moving into that property. All right, Mr. Doak, or Mr. Chairman, I would offer the deed as petitioners 4 into evidence.
So admitted, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, last exhibit, I believe we, before I do that, if I could also offer, if I didn't already, offer Exhibit 5, which was the letter that Mr. Wheeler testified earlier into evidence.
That will be admitted as well. And again, for the record, to the extent you're identifying exhibits, whether you formally move them or not, we will consider them properly entered into the record.
Thank you.
Sure.
Going to Exhibit 3. All right. Mr. Doak, if you could just kind of walk the board through what you did with this. And first I'll ask you, was this effectively the proposal that was sent to Ms. No, that was rejected?
It is, I believe, the third generation of proposals to Ms. No, trying to negotiate with her a amiable setback for her and protection and for the Wheelers. Yes, sir.
All right. I'm turning to first looks like the first floor. It's kind of hard to show the whole.
Reduce the size of it
Let me reduce it a bit.
so all of it will fit. There you go.
Okay.
So what I did was I first looked at her site plan, Ms. No's site plan, the one that was submitted. And once again, it showed that the front was 15 feet wide and the depth was 59 feet. Once again, so the depth and the width of the property is incorrect when comparison to the deed. Mr. Lansing, can you make it just a little larger, please?
I can.
Don't mean to complain, but I'm going blind here. So what we did was we tried to make a depiction of the options she had. So you'll see that you have 80%. That's what the regulations call for. We figured the area of the total lot based on the deed, and then in turn showed 80 feet, which brought us back to the 48 feet depth, and then that would be the 80%. We also showed it at 25% a reduction of the setback, and once again that brought it back to that. We have offered her a 12-foot setback on the first floor and the second floor, and that is shown, and that also coordinates with the 80%. So in good faith, the Wheelers have offered her 3 additional feet than what the 15-foot setback allows. Okay.
So I'm clear. The total property area, when you looked at the deed meets and bounds, is 1,052, and then you took 80% would be 842 square feet.
That's correct.
And it looks
Divided
like
by 17 feet, 5 3/4 inches, which is what the deed is, ends up being 48 feet, 48.17 feet. And from the front back, you can see where that line is.
right here. So that's roughly the 12-foot that was proposed to her, which is 3 feet greater than what the board or what the code allows. Is that correct? Okay. All right. And then also the size, if I'm looking at your math, the area of the floor, 842 square feet, matches the 80% that's allowed, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's without a variance, of course.
That's
All right.
correct.
Go to Exhibit B.
Exhibit B is just the same because we're proposing to allow her to have a 12-foot setback on the second floor as well. Now, keep in mind that the requirement is 15 feet. That's what it would be if she went with the 12. It would be 15 feet from the rear face of her building to the side face of Mr. Wheeler's, 15 feet. Okay?
Got it. All right. Exhibit 3C.
Now, on the third floor, Mr. Wheeler did not want to allow her to have a 12-foot setback. He felt that it needed to be additional. So in turn, we are proposing a 20-foot setback. And in many, if not most of the houses in there, that would still be more of a third floor than what most people have. Okay?
Got it.
So you can see that the 80% is the line here where it's always been, and then we're proposing a 20-foot setback.
Okay. And you prepared this exhibit utilizing the plans that were submitted, or in part utilizing the plans that were submitted by the applicant, correct?
That's correct.
And your changes are in red and in blue.
That's correct.
So I think I covered all the other exhibits. I would offer exhibit 3A, B, and C into the record, into evidence.
They are also admitted.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions for Mr. Doak. You heard, were you online listening to the other two cases, Mr. Doak?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay, and is there a difference with this property proposal compared to the others that you noticed?
This one, they're proposing to abut right up against, within 7 feet of somebody's side of their home and their existing windows. So not only for privacy, but enjoyment and fire safety, I find it unconscionable that they would want to be as close as they're proposing on this.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with Section 5-308 of the code, which deals with the standards the board has to be satisfied or met before approving a variance?
Yes, sir, I am.
So I asked you a couple questions. So in your opinion, as an expert in land use, zoning, and surveying, are the conditions in which Ms. No's application is based upon unique as to 1826 Bank Street as compared to other properties in this area, R8 zone?
No, sir. Not only on this street, but in this area. All the lots, may I go back to petitioner's exhibit number 1, please?
Yes.
I have testified hundreds of times in hearings as to uniqueness via Cromwell v. Ward, and I can tell you that in no way, shape, or form does this have uniqueness. You'll see that lots 25 through 34 are similar in size. Set depth, they're a little different. 25, the width is similar. Matter of fact, if you look, she has a wider lot than all of them on her block. So the buildings are all have the same front setback and have very similar rear setbacks. So I do not feel that this is unique at all.
In your opinion, will Ms. No face or deal with practical difficulty as compared to other properties right along the same street, in fact?
It's my professional opinion that she's creating her own hardship and practical difficulty. As much as she would like to say that she needs a bigger kitchen or stairs or this, all the other houses along here and in much of this neighborhood and in the R8 are the same size, layout, and people live in them every single day.
I realize you're not a real estate expert, but one of the criteria the board has to consider is, and based on your experience, would a larger home obtain a larger sale price or a larger rent income versus a smaller home?
I believe it would. Yes, sir. Common sense would say that.
And in your expert opinion, would the requested variance relief, if granted with the 4-foot setback on all 3 floors, be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity, and most notably the Wheeler family?
Yes, sir. If you can imagine looking out your window, if you're Mr. and Mrs. Wheeler, and looking out there far enough you could just about reach the other house 7 feet away, and seeing a wall or windows that they can look in yours and you can look in theirs. I would say yes, sir, it would. The Wheelers have a wonderful, they keep their house up very well, and it would be a detriment to theirs.
And relating to that issue, would the variance, if granted, diminish and impair property values, including the Wheeler property?
I can't put a number on it, but you can only imagine it would. Not only the value, but the marketability of it. So, yes, sir.
All right. I guess kind of a final question. In your opinion as an expert with your years of experience, with the variance requested with the 4-foot setbacks on all 3 floors and the variance for the lot coverage, allowing the property to be within 6 or 7 feet of the Wheeler residence, be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of this area?
Yes, sir, it would.
I believe that those are the questions I have for Mr. Doak. I think we have all the exhibits in. And I would just proffer to the board that the testimony and the exhibits clearly show that this proposal will be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of this community and the immediate neighbors, and that the applicant has not met her burden of proof under Cromwell v. Ward. And there's some serious concerns about some statements made with regard to a neighbor supposedly approving this. Also, the fact that her own deed says that she should be residing there when she, as represented to the board, she'll reside in another home when applying for a variance. And that I'll just reserve for anything further.
Very well, thank you. Ms. Byrne, do we have anything else in connection with opposition to, or anyone else to hear from beyond Mr. Lance?
We do have several other callers. Mr. May is on the line, and his hand is raised. So, Mr. Lanzi, if you don't mind, I'm going to take the ball back from you.
Don't mind at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzi.
Okay, so Mr. May, Mr. May, I've made you a panelist, so you can and you are unmuted.
Yes, good afternoon. I raised my hand earlier. Yes, thank you. Earlier in the this hearing, one of the board members asked whether these plans had been provided to the proposed point, and I did want to just confirm that Ms. Snow did provide the plans back in March, I think, or February. Now, she later told me that she made revisions to them and shortened the original shortened the what she originally planned to do, reduced the size slightly, and those I obtained from BMZA directly. And that's all I wanted to just confirm, since that question was raised earlier.
Very well.
Association in favor of this or opposed to this?
Well, we didn't take a formal position to oppose it. We just basically, in our letter, we say we can't support it. We would prefer, we prefer to see something worked out between. We prefer not to be in the middle of a dispute between property owners. So we would prefer to see an agreement, an arrangement that benefited both sides, or both sides could agree with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May.
You're welcome.
We have a couple of other people on here. I've Ms. Russo. I'm going to unmute you if you'd like to speak. Ms. Russo? And I have Mary Orr. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Mary? And one more I think that's it. I think that's everybody. No one else has raised their hand. If anyone else has any opposition, please put it in the chat or raise your hand. If not, we will go back to the applicant.
All right, Ms. Snow, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Ma'am, where do you live?
I live at 615 South Montfort. I will move into 317 South Madera, but we are not finished renovating that home. I never stated that I would live at 1826 Bank Street. And also, if you look at the SDAT website, it shows that it is not my principal place of residence.
Okay.
I did have a question for Mr. Lanzi though, or the other person. I don't know his name. The land use person.
Okay.
If I ask questions.
It's
It's not,
a little unusual, but we've been this way. We've gone down that road before. But he's here, and you have a question. What is it?
So my question was, he showed a picture of my neighbor at 1828 Bank Street, and he spoke briefly about where he thought he proposed. Well, I never spoke with the land use person, by the way. I've only spoken with Mr. Lanzi. But he mentioned something to the effect that he made a proposal or that Mr. Lanzi made a proposal. So I want to ask what he meant exactly relative to, because 1828 Bank Street has already extended out, right? And so he said that he made a proposal that I could build my home basically align with the home at 1828 Bank Street. Is that what he said? That's what I need clarification on.
Well, you can speak to it if you like, sir. But I mean, the record is what it is. Is that a proposal you would consider?
It is definitely a proposal I would consider because they've never mentioned that to me before. They've only mentioned numbers, but they've never actually said what they've never actually made a proposal, I guess a visual proposal if I may. But if they are saying that they made a proposal that I could extend my home basically in aligned with my neighbor at 1828 Bank Street, Mr. Augusto, then I'm definitely I'm okay with that. But they've never said that.
Okay. Well, I think we know your position on that, so I think that's the important thing for the board, whether he said it or not. So
Yeah, because I mean, my question is maybe I misunderstood Mr. Lanzi's proposal because I know that Mr. Lanzi made a proposal, but his proposal at the time was just that he wanted me to extend the home by 47.5, which I had told him that that's 80% of the lot or whatnot. But if he's basically saying that what he meant by that was that I could build my home and extend it to the same degree that 1828 Bank Street is at, then I'm happy with that, and I will accept that proposal.
But that's not the proposal we have before us.
No, what I'm saying is I don't understand if that's what he said or not, because if that was, then I'm willing to consider that. I asked for a 4-foot setback, which I believe is a greater distance from 326 Wolf Street than the 1828 Bank Street. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mr. Lanzi, do you want to speak to that at all? I'll give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, the way this is being presented, it's almost disingenuous. The plans were her plans, and we provided from Mr. Doak's handiwork a proposal showing the 12 foot on the first 2 floors and the 20. We don't have access to the property next door she's talking about, so I couldn't even confirm that. That would be impossible to do. I'm not about to make an agreement without having the proper information. She had this. She has her architect, apparently probably never submitted to the architect, who maybe could have advised her. She just basically advised us that she would take her chances with the board. So, I mean, our position remains the same. Once she ceased negotiations, especially after the time and expense to try to resolve this, my instructions were to proceed to, request the board to deny the request of relief, which my understanding would be the most she could get is the 15 feet for the first 2 floors. Actually, 15 feet for the first all 3 floors. And then you have the 80% issue as well. But
It is my understanding, sorry to interrupt, but it is my understanding after speaking with Mr. May that it will be 80%. Mr. May had already advised me basically that it would be 80% of the lot, which would be the 47.5, which is what Mr. Lanzi had proposed. And that is what I said no to, because I said I would get the 47.5 without a variance, because if I submitted plans, that would just get basically accepted by the city, because that's 80% of the lot. And that's why I told him that I was seeking the 55 variance, because I was asking for basically 7.5 feet more of a setback than was allowed.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're caught in a lot of he said, she said.
Well, we're going to close this testimony out. Ms. No, is there anything else you want to respond to from you, since you get the last word, but we're going to wrap this up regarding the opposition?
Yes.
Or anything else you want us to know?
Yes, I would. First off, when I said that I obtained a letter, I meant that I obtained a letter from Mr. Dennis, who is my neighbor at 1824 Bank Street. He himself dropped that letter off or mailed it or whatnot. And I believe Miss Kathleen Burns said at the beginning of the meeting that she received his letter. So that was what I was referring to. In terms of Mr. Contreras, I would like to clarify that I only spoke with him verbally. So at the time when I spoke with him verbally, he said he was fine with it. And after that, I did not have a chance to speak with him again. So at the time when he first moved in, because he moved in, I believe around August of 2020, and I spoke with him, he said he was fine with me remodeling and he was okay. At the time, I said that I wanted to extend my home only to the length that he himself extended. So I'm sorry if there was any confusion about that, but I never said that I obtained a letter from Mr. Contreras, because I did not. I only spoke with him. And in regards to where I reside, I want to again clarify that I live at 615 South Montford. I am planning on moving to 317 South Madera. The Bank Street home, I have basically recorded with the SDAT that it is a rental property. It is not my homestead. It does not say that. So, I mean, and when I was doing my presentation, again, I did not say that I was going to reside at Bank Street. So if that was any confusion, I would like to clarify. I thought that I had spoken very clearly that it would be a rental and that I am interested in providing affordable housing, and that the previous tenant who lived there was with BRHP, and that I'm looking for tenants in that category. So if there was any confusion as to if somebody thought that I said that I would live at 1826 Bank Street, that is not true.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just so the board's clear, I think Mr. Doak should address the representation that he was presenting 1828 as what would be acceptable. I'm sorry, the expansion of 1828 would be acceptable. So I want him to clarify that, and that's number one. And two, Mr. Doak was literally reading from the deed, which has an affidavit signed by Ms. No that it would be owner-occupied property.
Understood. And so typically, we do appellee or respondent, and then appellee having the final word. She raised the issue. I understand. She raised the issue. I got it. She raised the issue. Mr. Doak, you are still here. It's out of the ordinary, but you're here, so we'll hear from you, Mr. Doak, on what it is you meant with regard to that comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
What I was meaning is that it would be similar to, since I couldn't trespass and do the measurements I needed to measure back from the fence, which is approximately the property line, back to 1828, the rear plane of that house. If I could measure that, then in turn I would know the relationship of that to the proposed 12 feet that we were offering Miss No. But it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark where that is. But as Mr. Lansing said, that offer of 12 feet was rejected. So in turn, that's up to them how they address it and deal with it from this point forward.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Doak.
Your question.
Mr. Lanzi, I think does that address it? And certainly the board has taken note of the evidence that you've submitted, including the deed and any documents attached to it, including the affidavit.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for allowing that.
Ms. No, final word, if you haven't already given it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would like to thank Mr. Lanzi and also the owner at 326 Wolf. I wish that I had actually been able to speak with the owner directly. Maybe then we would have come to a better conclusion or an easier solution in terms of where he felt that he was comfortable. But likewise, unfortunately, that didn't happen at this time. I am asking the zoning board for that 93% lot coverage. I feel that it is a reasonable allowance because I'm asking only for 7.5 feet on top of what I will be allowed by the city building department. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That'll conclude this matter, 2021-052, and that concludes the docket. Am I right, Ms. Byrne? For today's hearing.
Yes, that
Proceed
concludes
to,
the docket. And I'm
deliberations. All right.
Okay.